UFO circle jerker extraordinaire, all of you UFO circle jerks are now on the table. UFO circle jerker extraordinaire, all of you UFO circle jerks are now on the table. They're there to help the grifters advertise their fake nonsense. That's their function. They're there to help the grifters advertise their fake nonsense. That's their function. That's what they're there to do. 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 That's what they're there to do.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. Tonight, I'm going to look into this new podcast from the Wonder Twins, Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. For those of you unaware, George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell have been making millions of dollars for the past bunch of years, selling a fake story about a convicted pimp fake scientist who claimed to work on alien spacecraft at Area 51. Just one problem: that man was never a scientist. That's the first problem. Second problem, he never stepped foot on Area 51. Third problem, Bob Lazar gets caught lying over and over and over again, including claiming to be a scientist at Los Alamos. But if you took the time to actually talk to or interview the scientists he worked for at Los Alamos, they will tell you that Bob was a low-level electronics technician. He was never a scientist. But hey, don't let things like facts and evidence get in the way of a great story that you could make millions of dollars selling. And let's be very clear, these two have made millions and millions of dollars selling a completely provably fake story about a convicted pimp that claimed to be a physicist, who, by the way, will not submit himself to speaking to real physicists. There's your first clue. That guy's not a real scientist. And despite what I think of Travis Taylor, even Travis Taylor says he's a fake scientist, convicted pimp, which is somewhat problematic because George Knapp and him are chummy, and he's giving interviews to George Knapp while saying that Bob Lazar is a fraud and a liar. Gets a little complicated. And let's not forget Skinwalker Ranch. These two clowns, you know, I'm going to try to remain more objective and not get personal anymore. So I won't call George Knapp or Jeremy Corbell clowns. I may call them CIA disinformation assets, because if the shoe fits, they're going to have to wear it. There is a lot of things that are very problematic about George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. Things that I don't understand. Things that somebody needs to explain to me. For example, let's just take a quick example. Here's a quick example. Let's say a yeoman on a ship. I don't know what the titles are on a ship. Let's say that a United States Navy officer or enlisted man on a Navy ship sent me videos of unidentified flying objects buzzing the ship. That would be classified, that video. Navy officers aren't allowed to just send random UFO grifters videos off of the deck of aircraft carriers. That's not something that most Navy people would do, because they could be prosecuted and thrown out of the Navy for it. But what we're all supposed to believe that multiple times now, Jeremy Corbell is getting leaked classified information over and over and over again. Even by his own admission, he claims that he's getting leaked classified information from Navy sources. Here's one of my favorites. And by the way, before we dig deep into this, is it too much to ask for that some of these people who have made millions of dollars selling provably fake stories get forced to prove the stories they've already made millions from are true before they come with new fantastical stories with no evidence, new fantastical claims with no proof? But that's the reality, or that's the reality I think I'd like. They've made millions of dollars selling Skinwalker stories, millions of dollars selling Bob Lazar, a provably fake, convicted pimp, fake scientist, right? They haven't proven those stories are true, but what do? They come to us with more and new fantastical stories. And here's one of my favorite of Jeremy Corbell's fantastical stories.
My question is, when there are unsubstantiated claims or manufactured claims of UAPs or kind of false information that's put out there.
I have seen the logs. I have seen the videos. We have attempted shoot downs of UAPs on a regular basis. We're talking as recently as last Friday.
My question is, when there are unsubstantiated claims or manufactured claims of UAPs or kind of false information that's put out there.
I have seen the logs. I have seen the videos. We have attempted shoot downs of UAPs on a regular basis. We're talking as recently as last Friday.
So here's the problem with that. Who's showing Jeremy Corbell logs that would be, by definition, classified off of Navy vessels that are shooting at so-called unidentified aerial phenomenon or UFOs? Anyone who showed Jeremy Corbell logs or videos from those encounters would be fired and would be arrested and would be prosecuted under the Espionage Act. You can't just share Navy ship logs with some UFO clown grifter. Damn it, I did it again. Investigative filmmaker. You can't do that. You would be arrested if you were a Navy officer who did that. And by the way, Corbell never showed any proof of that claim. That's an awfully huge, fantastical claim. And when myself and other people who actually know how these things work, by the way, my father was a career Navy man. So I know a little bit about how this works. You can't just show a reporter or anybody that's not in the Navy logs and videos of naval encounters where they're shooting at anything, identified or otherwise. If you did, the feds would be at your door. You would lose your commission in the Navy. You would lose your pension and all your benefits from the Navy. You would lose your paycheck. Then you would be criminally prosecuted for leaking that information. But we're all supposed to believe that Jeremy Corbell gets leaked classified information from the Navy and the government and the Pentagon all the time. That's the first problem with how you know that something is not right here. Something is just not right with Jeremy Corbell and his various claims of getting classified information from government sources. He does so routinely. So I reached out to Susan Go, Pentagon spokesperson, and I asked, are any of the people leaking all of this classified information to Jeremy Corbell, and by extension, I suppose, George Knapp, is anybody being investigated? Is there an investigation, or are Navy personnel just allowed to freely give Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp classified information from government sources with absolutely no repercussions? And do we know, are these Navy personnel selling this information to Corbell? Some of them may be smart enough to realize that Corbell is making millions of dollars selling these UFO stories. Maybe they want a piece of the pie. Then it for sure becomes a problem with the Espionage Act. You certainly can't just leak classified information to reporters or outside people outside of the military, logs, videos. You can't leak any of that to people outside of that armed forces network, right? Only people who are cleared within that branch of the military service can even see that material. So is there an investigation into the people that are leaking, quite possibly selling this information to Corbell? Crickets. Why can't I get an answer to a very simple question? And it is a very simple question. And this is what leads me to believe in the whole op narrative. If I was in possession of the kind of information that Jeremy Corbell claims is routinely just leaked to him, I would be prosecuted. I would be facing criminal charges if I was getting those leaks. If you were getting those leaks and then disseminating them on the internet, you too would be prosecuted. You too may face criminal charges for taking information and putting it out there on the internet, especially for profit. If anybody does this, they get prosecuted. But somehow Jeremy Corbell, what does he have? Does he have a permission slip from the government? Here, Jeremy, everybody that wants to leak classified information can just leak it to you with no investigations, no repercussions, and you can make millions of dollars selling this taxpayer-funded information to whoever you want. This is our first clue that something is not right with Jeremy Corbell. So there's two possibilities here. Either he's lying and he's not getting anything classified, or he's getting a pass from the government. And why would the government give him and all the people leaking him this information a pass? Let's review quickly. Let's review some of Jeremy Corbell's claims. We're going to start with Corbell. But before we do, I think it's important that we recognize some of the other people calling out Jeremy Corbell. The only person that I'm aware of that's been calling out Corbell longer than me is Solar Marshal and Alien Scientist. And here's a quote from Alien Scientist. Jeremy lied about the hand scanners. He lied about the FBI raid on United Nuclear. He lied about Bob Thigpen and other whistleblowers that didn't exist. And he lied about having a piece of Element 115. I think that we can clearly establish that Jeremy Corbell is a proven liar. Jeremy Rise, Alien Scientist, goes on to say he is not a reliable source of information on UFOs. But let's review, because this, I think, is an important point that I don't understand how everybody misses this. I don't understand how people miss that Jeremy Corbell is constantly claiming that he's getting classified information from classified briefings or classified activities going on Navy ships, and nobody gets arrested. There's no investigation. And if you ask a Defense Department about this, crickets. They don't even get back to you. Now, I will admit that there's something that I call podcast bias. If you send questions to a Pentagon spokesperson and under your name is writer New York Post or writer New York Times or Washington Post or some prestigious news organization, you may get a reply. But I'm not the only podcast host or show host who has commented on the fact that if you don't have impressive credentials, you often get zero. They just don't even reply, which that's a whole other issue. But it's something that we have to recognize, and I have to recognize, because I don't want people to take the fact that they won't reply to my questions or demands for information as something nefarious. It's just, this is how the system works. They don't want to waste time talking to podcasters. And I've been told that by somebody high up within the Defense Intelligence Agency once. They said, to be honest with you, we just don't reply to certain outlets. It is what it is. But let's review here, because this is important, and somebody maybe can explain this to me. So Jeremy Corbell at one time, let's forget all about selling the Bob Lazar mythology, and let's forget all about him selling the Skinwalker Ranch when there was that Patient 17 where he didn't prove anything once again. But according to Jeremy Corbell's own claims, he was leaked footage from onboard Navy vessels that would be classified by nature. If there are unidentified aircraft swarming Navy ships and someone on that ship takes a video of that with their phone or any other device, they can't just leak it to the press. They can't just leak it to members of the media, journalists, if you want to call George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell that. They cannot just leak that information. They can't do it. Again, they would lose their pension, they would get thrown out of the Navy, and more, criminally prosecuted, and more. He claimed to be in possession of footage from Navy ships by crewmen. In other words, crewmen were on the ship when the pyramid UFOs were around and leaked him information. Again, those people would be prosecuted. He even had some footage that was apparently from inside a Navy ship control room, being filmed with what appeared to be a phone. That, of course, would be classified. Again, you as a Navy crewman can't go into the control room and start making videos of radar screens and other control apparatus on board the ship and then just give it to whoever you want to. There would be consequences for that. Next, Jeremy Corbell claims that he's seeing logs from Navy ships and videos of Navy ships shooting at UFOs. Again, anytime a Navy ship fires on anything, there would be incident reports and a mountain of paperwork, and all would be classified. You cannot, as a Navy crewman, just show logs to Jeremy Corbell. So, again, we have to ask ourselves, in all these instances, is Jeremy Corbell lying about the information that he claims is being leaked to him? Or is he getting a pass from the United States government, and the United States Navy, and the Department of Defense, and everyone else? Does everyone believe that the United States government would just say, sure, you can leak all this information to a UFO profiteering huckster who's been selling fake stories about convicted pimp fake scientists and making millions of dollars for years? Sure, just leak whatever you want. Do you want to film the control room of a Navy ship and send it to Jeremy Corbell? Go ahead. No consequences. There won't be any consequences whatsoever. Do you want to stand on the deck of an aircraft carrier that's being swarmed by Chinese drones and then just give it to Jeremy Corbell? Sure, go ahead. There won't be any consequences. We won't investigate it. We won't arrest anybody. We won't throw anybody out of the Navy. Go ahead. Oh, and while we're on that, if you as a Navy shipman, crew member, want to show Jeremy Corbell logs from UAP or UFO encounters where ordinances were used, where we shot at UFOs or shot at UAP, go ahead. Sure, go ahead. Leak all that information to Jeremy Corbell and nothing will happen to you. We won't investigate Corbell or Knapp. We won't investigate you. We won't throw you out of the armed forces. We won't take away your pension. We won't criminally prosecute anyone. So what do we believe here? Again, there's only two possibilities. Either Corbell is lying about sources and methods of how he's obtaining this information and this stuff that he is sharing, or Jeremy Corbell is the golden boy of the media, and he gets a pass on obtaining all of this classified information. I'm not sure what to believe, but sometimes when I look at some of these things, I think that there are certainly members of the media, or let's call them useful idiots, that are in cooperation with intelligence agencies. And I'm talking to you, Leslie Kean, right? Who wrote that 2016 article that was filled with factual inaccuracies, right? No vetting, no fact checking, a useful idiot that would get whatever message this op wanted put out. And isn't it interesting? 2016, we can view from a lens now. We can view from the lens of time and all that water under the bridge. And what happened as a result of what some would call an op? Major funding increases for UFOs and UAP. Major, billions of dollars was somehow appropriated, generated, and given to the defense industry to deal with UFOs. More money for Space Force and UFOs, UAP Task Force, Aero, all kinds of money. And all, if you ask me, as a result of that 2016 article in the New York Times, which was completely and totally factually inaccurate and incorrect, and the efforts of some of these people like Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo. That's another thing. How do you take UFO videos out of the Pentagon and then profit from them for 5 years? And there's little or no pushback. That's another one of those questions that the United States government won't answer for me. So I'm left with more questions than answers. And let's not forget, where did Jeremy Corbell come from? Well, apparently he came from being a trust fund kid in California with very wealthy parents, and he's never had a real job, 9-to-5 real job in his life, near as I can tell. He worked for his parents who owned a lot of property. Then he was an artist. He was a jiu-jitsu guy, inventing something called quantum jiu-jitsu, which doesn't really exist. And also, he was a yoga teacher. That's exactly who I want to get all of my UFO information from. Let's take a look at Jeremy Corbell before people knew him as the UFO guy.
I've never done warrior yoga before, so we're going to go check it out.
Hi, I'm Jeremy.
Tell me, what is warrior yoga?
Warrior yoga is a method or a methodology of the study of yoga based upon the concept of the martial way. I began studying yoga when I was 9 years old. I studied jiu-jitsu at the same time, and I found that the practice of yoga helped me to become a better competitor at first and allowed me to relax my mind and my body and get me kind of more able to practice martial arts. And then after time, yoga became a focus for all of my students and my martial arts schools around the U.S. And now everybody uses it for competition and also just for basic classes. The response has been, overwhelming in every area of life and every kind of person. And, it's just something I guess you'll have to try for yourself.
I think so. So where do people go to learn more information?
You can go to warrioryoga.org, or you can, try the class right now. See how that is.
Well, I'm here for that. Let's do it.
Let's do it. You always got to flex first thing in warrior yoga.
Okay, I can do it.
We're going to clap 3 times, bow, and say Namaste. Namaste. Inhale, stand out, clap the back. Exhale, shoot back, chaturanga. Inhale, upward dog. Bend the knees, look forward, inhale. And exhale, float. Double fold.
Give me the towel. Now.
Exhale it. Okay, so inhale, lifting, warrior 1. Exhale, push. Inhale, open. Good. Exhale, reverse. So thank you for coming to Warrior Yoga today. I hope you enjoyed the class, and I will see you next week at 7. Attention, deep inhale. And bow. Namaste.
So, thanks for hanging out with us today at Warrior Yoga. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I had a great time, really toning the muscles, toning the mind, and now I have to go take a shower. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I totally enjoyed myself. I hope you did too. You know what? It always reminds me just how stiff I actually am. I am so not limber. I'm the opposite of limber. So all those things, my arm going up is a problem. Grasshopper, are you interested in giving it a try? Well, maybe so.
Yeah, let's all give warrior yoga a try. Saw a comment. I'm not sure if you're being serious. Corbell doesn't deserve this abuse. This is not abuse. This is questions. Moody Mongol, do you know that if I was in possession of classified information from a United States Navy vessel, I would be criminally prosecuted? How does Corbell get away with that? That's all I'm asking, and that's a very valid question. Of course, he always has some excuse. This is unclassified from a classified briefing. This doesn't make any sense at all. And we're going to see some, I have some articles to share on that. Here we go. Let's share this. This is not how any of this works. That's why I have questions. According to the podcasters, the picture itself is not classified, but the footage that it was taken from was part of a classified briefing produced by the Pentagon's now defunct Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force. So who declassified the still image? Why is Jeremy Corbell allowed to share still images from classified briefings for profit? Am I allowed to do that? No, I can't. I can't do that. I would be prosecuted if I had information from a classified briefing and I shared it on the internet. So these are very valid questions. And one second. Oh, and we have some excellent information coming to us from Cosmic Neighbors. Cosmic Neighbors, I'm going to send you a show invitation link. One second. We'll invite Cosmic Neighbors to talk about what he found. He filed some FOIA requests about these classified matters. Yeah. I'm going to have trouble reading that, Ron. I wish I would have saw that before. One second. 1 second, friends. Just bear with me. I'm going to save these off so that I can actually read them. Sometimes people forget that I'm visually impaired, so it makes reading small print difficult. All right, I got him saved off. I've sent Ron. Yeah, so let's get back to this. So, according to the podcasters, the picture itself is not classified, but the footage that was taken from part of a classified briefing produced by the Pentagon's now defunct Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Forces. And let's get to something else I found, which is John from the Black Vault. Unlike the previous images and things that Corbell was sharing, that the government said, yeah, that was taken on aboard a Navy ship or did come from government sources, they have not in the case of this latest image. And 1 second, let me get that. Boy. Okay, here I have that information. Let me share with John from the Black Vault. He checked into this latest. Oh, you know what? Let's share the image first, and I have some questions about this latest image. And again, this image was apparently leaked from a classified briefing and then used to promote a monetized new podcast by Jeremy Corbell. Again, profit-driven. This is amazing. It's amazing. Can I get some classified information from classified briefings so that I can promote my show? No, of course I can't. But somehow Corbell, he gets a free pass. They're giving him stills from classified briefings. The video in the classified briefing is classified, but somehow a still image taken from that classified video from the classified briefing is not classified. So somebody needs to explain this to me. But this is the latest photo that they used to monetize their curiosity. And according to Corbell and Knapp, show a spherical object tracking along an aircraft. And again, with the lie by omission. Here's something important. Why was the GPS location data redacted or withheld from the still image? Could it be that they didn't want us to see that? And why did we get the still image and not the video? There's a reason we didn't get the video. And I don't believe that that reason is because it's great video. Yeah, and let me go to my Google Drive here. I'm gonna upload these images that Ron sent me. You'll have to bear with me. I apologize, friends, but I cannot read this one bit. And let me upload them, and then I'll be able to size them, so I'll be able to read them. All right, we get them going. And oh, while we're okay, so that's enough of this image. This image is carefully manipulated data used to sell a story. We didn't get the whole story because we got what we always get from Corbell and Knapp, the lie by omission. Just give the data points or the information that would seem to suggest. Oh, he just sent me a PDF. Come on, Ron, get on the ball. Let me see if I can't find that. Yeah, let me hope that my Gmail wants to cooperate with me. Yes, here we go. All right, so this is very, very interesting. All right, and we're going to share this as a Truth Seekers exclusive, I guess. I'm sure Ron may have shared this, but I don't. Let me make it a little bigger so that there we go. All right. And I will be sharing this is about Corbell and his so-called leaks. This letter is response to your Freedom of Information submitted to Naval Inspector General's office on November 4th. Your request was processed in accordance. Okay. You have been categorized as a media requester, and as such, only duplication fees. Okay. USS Kidd, USS Rafael Perlata, USS Russell, USS John Finn, USS Paul Hamilton conducted a thorough search of their spaces for responsive records. After their search, the ships informed our office that they could not locate any records of investigations or otherwise, and therefore no records exists. So that means that all these people that Corbell claims he's getting essentially classified information from, there's no investigations, just as I said. If you have questions regarding the processing of your request, you may contact Mr. Juan Lopez, Command FOIA Coordinator. Yeah. So essentially, there's no investigations. Information on the videos, UAP-UAV, that were leaked to a documentary filmmaker and reporter, Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, from some of the ships. Your request was referred to this office. Your request was processed. And so essentially what they said, after their search, the ships informed our office they could not locate any records of investigations or otherwise, and therefore no records exist. So this means we have more questions. Who's lying then? Is Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp lying about where they're getting this information from? They named the ships, right? Are the ships and their crew and their commanders derelict in their duty to protect classified information? Does Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp just get a pass for their apparently leaking, getting classified leaks? And listen, here's the thing. I just want a level playing field. So what I'd like is, and thank you, Ron, that was very, very helpful, actually, because that confirms what I've already been trying to establish, which is these people are claiming that they're getting leaks of very sensitive information from military sources, and there's no investigations. This makes absolutely no sense. If these people were truly getting leaks from these ships the captain, other officers involved, the intelligence officers on board the ship. They would want to know who's leaking all this information to Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. But apparently, there's no investigations into any of this, which again means one of two things. Either Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp are lying about where they're getting the information from, or they're getting a pass for being in possession of very sensitive, probably classified information on these topics. And again, hey, can I sign up for this? Can I sign up and get, the classified information so that I can monetize it and make money off of taxpayer-funded stuff too? Or does just George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell get to make money off of leaks off of Navy ships? None of this makes any sense. None of this makes any sense. It just leaves me with more questions for the Navy. Why aren't they investigating then? They said that's where they got the information from, right? I don't understand any of this. I don't understand any of this. But now Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp are on to new stories to sell us. But I think it's very, very important that we realize that they've already sold us a lot of stories and haven't proven them. Like Element 115, right? And hey, let's not forget. Oh, I love Stephen Greenstreet and what he did with those stories George Knapp was telling about Skinwalker Ranch. The smoking dogs and
She saw this standing on two legs, a wolf creature, a wolf standing in her yard, its paws crossed like this, leaning on a tree, staring back at
her. Yeah, absolutely. I want to know, but my even better than that one is the dog man.
They come down this dirt road one night and they see two figures, humanoid-looking figures, standing up with their backs to the road and looked like they were smoking cigarettes. They had trench coats on, smoking cigarettes, standing out on the road. These guys figure, what are these fellas up to? So they're pulling up and they shining their lights on the guys, and they turn around and they were dogs.
The dog men of Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah. And what amazes me is that these guys have made millions of dollars. And, when we get into where the evidence is, Stephen Greenstreet also did an excellent job pointing out that George Knapp, who's made millions of dollars selling Skinwalker Ranch stories and claimed in his book that his book was all based on all kinds of forensic and collected evidence, on Joe Rogan had to admit he didn't have any evidence.
But no evidence of any kind to back up any of these stories has ever been presented. George Knapp, who's built an entire career around stories of UFOs and the paranormal, and who was one of the authors of the Hunt for the Skinwalker book, was asked about evidence on the Joe Rogan show.
Because they weren't there with cameras.
Is there any evidence?
Like for the first 20 months when the rancher is there, they don't have any evidence because he's not a paranormal investigator.
At this point, Knapp begins telling more stories about UFOs on and near the ranch. Rogan then interrupts and asks again.
Is there any evidence?
No, not really.
Oh.
If you're looking for physical evidence and solid proof, and they don't have it.
Oh. Knapp saying there's no proof or evidence is quite strange, considering the book Knapp co-authored says this: "We obtained an intriguing body of physical evidence to support many of the accounts described in the book." Okay, so where is that intriguing body of physical evidence?
There is none. There's no evidence. He wrote a whole book and made millions of dollars off of stories, anecdotes with no evidence. And this, I suppose, is why I have a problem with them monetizing their curiosity and coming out with this podcast, which is all news stories and new BS that they want to sell us, but they've never proved the last BS. Like, can you prove that before you come up with new stories, George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell? Of course not. And it gets even better when we get to George Knapp, because I love the stories of the Element 115. Constantly, George Knapp, many different media appearances, claims that he knows where absolute proof of Bob Lazar's story is, and someday he's going to dig it up, right? Why would he not do that in 1989, right? It's 2023. You've had since 1989 to show us the proof that Bob Lazar's not a fraud, but you haven't. Is that maybe because he's a convicted pimp fake scientist who tells science fiction fantasy stories and you bought it, George Knapp? Element 115. Remember those stories that you told about Element 115?
And in the Jeremy Corbell documentary about Bob Lazar, there is an allusion that Bob still has an Element 115. Does he really have an Element 115?
Well, I can tell you that he did have it because I saw it. You know, I was at his house. You know, he had it in it was a pewter sort of a device that he had created to sort of protect it from unwanted rays and things and particles, and it was in his house. He took it out one time, and they did an experiment called a cloud chamber experiment, in which they could show that this Element 115 affected gravity. It bent light, in essence. He thought it was real. His friends thought it was real. The government seems to have thought it was real because they came looking for it a bunch of times. They came looking a bunch of times, and you know, if I believe that Bob has put that away somewhere in a place where nobody's going to find it unless he wants to break it out. I've tried to convince him that he should, but I think he probably sees that as his insurance policy that keeps him alive, because there have been threats both against him and against me and likely against Jeremy Corbell.
Yeah, lots of threats about an imaginary space element that doesn't exist. Well, it exists, but not in the form that Bob Lazar said. And it gets even better when you get to the Element 115, because during one media appearance where George Knapp was getting paid handsomely to tell, you know, flying saucer stories, he claimed that he knew where the Element 115 was buried. And someday he was going to dig it up and, you know, prove all these naysayers wrong. And by the way, George Knapp, I am sending you a goddamn shovel. George Knapp, you got called out by me. You say you know where the Element 115 is buried. I'm sending you a shovel, dude. I'm sending you a shovel. Dig it up. Show it to us, you liar.
Folks are doing, and anti-gravity propulsion is something they want very badly. Bob said that the key to it was this Element 115. He had a piece of it. I saw it. In fact, he had a little experiment they did with what's called a cloud chamber, where they had, it looked to me like light. They had a piece of this 115 in this chamber. They put some smoke in it, and it seemed, and then had a beam of light through it, and the light bent. Bob, at one point, when he thought he was going to die, had this piece of 115 in it was in a lead casing, in a disc-shaped casing, and he had it in front of a particle accelerator at his house, and he had the accelerator on, and all he had to do was flip a button. If this stuff was real, as he described it, flipping that button would hit it with, I don't know, it's protons or electrons, whatever it was, that would make it explode, an annihilation that would have left a great big hole in Las Vegas. Now, he had that piece. I saw the experiment. What happened to it, that's a story for another time. It's in a spot now where nobody could get to it, but it's still there. One of these days, maybe after Bob's gone, I'll go dig it up. The Defense Department folks are doing.
Yeah, he knows exactly where that Element 115 is buried, and someday he's going to dig it up. So I'll send you a shovel, George Knapp. I'll go there with you. I'll dig it up for you. You're an old dude, right? I can dig a hole. Let's go find the Element 115, George Knapp. You got paid to tell that story. And by the way, another wonderful part of that story is that he claims Bob Lazar had a particle accelerator in his bedroom. Go talk to anybody that's a real physicist. There's no such thing as a particle accelerator that will fit in somebody's bedroom or house, right? And apparently, Bob Lazar was going to blow up Las Vegas. Did he call the police? Did he call local authorities? Did he call like Homeland Security and alert them that somebody was about to blow up the whole city of Las Vegas? No reports of that. But hey, it's a great story that you can sell and tell people while you're getting paid to tell great stories, right? I'll give George Knapp this. He's a great storyteller. That's that dog thing. Oh, that dog thing is awesome. The smoking dogs. They were dogs, 2 dogs, and they were smoking. Oh, it's wonderful. But let's get back to, before we get into the video, and by the way, we're not going to share much of the video because I know that Corbell is an intellectual coward and a weakling. And even though George Knapp is a journalist and knows fully what fair use is, I'm still concerned that we'll get a false copyright strike. And by the way, lawyer letters are standing by. We're going to share portions of the video. If Corbell wants to get the strike reverted to him, because we will clearly show fair use in our use of a clip from his podcast, he's free to do that, but the strike will revert to him. I have won 21 false copyright claims or strikes with my excellent lawyer letters. Yeah. Okay. So let's get back to this. Let's get back to this photo that's apparently from Iraq. And again, you know, here's the thing. If this is from war operations in Iraq, why would it just be legal for somebody to leak it to Jeremy Corbell? It wouldn't be. But we're supposed to believe that somehow it would be okay. And Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp get a pass because they are, they need something to sell on their new podcast, something to really kick it off. So they've got an exclusive photo from apparently classified operations taking place in Iraq. And but people are allowed to leak photos of that to Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. I say no. And further arguments to prove that they're not telling us the truth come through John Greenwald, who says about that Mosul orb leak recently published by Jeremy Corbell, the Pentagon refuses to comment. Quote, "We're not going to comment on remarks by unnamed sources citing alleging leaks from a classified report. This is definitely a change from their comments on the 2021 images." She also added to the Black Vault on Friday that DOD takes public interest in UAP seriously. The department is committed to openness and accountability to the American people, which it must balance with its obligation to protect sensitive information sources and methods. AARO is working to develop a means to provide updates to the public on UAP cases, including sharing the analytic approach and method used. When able to obscure and protect sensitive information, AARO will work to declassify and clear material for release to the public. So I don't understand then. Who's lying? Is Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp lying about where that photo came from? Or is the Pentagon lying? Again, quote, "We're not going to comment on remarks by unnamed sources alleging leaks from a classified report." Well, Jeremy Corbell said that that was leaked from a classified report, and we have confirmation of that in various news outlets. Again, I've already shared that article where they said it was somehow unclassified still from a classified UAP briefing that contained a video that was 4 seconds long. So I don't understand. In normal circumstances, I couldn't just take a still from a classified video and then release it and certainly not make money on it on YouTube. But somehow Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp are perfectly able to do that just fine. None of this makes any sense to me. It just doesn't make sense. Something's not right. Somebody's not telling us the truth. Somebody is lying to us. Do I believe the government's lying to us? Probably. The government's always lying to us. But it's just curious that Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp get to continue to claim that they're in possession of information from classified sources that they're allowed to monetize, they're allowed to sell and make money from, and none of the rest of us are allowed to do that. I'm not getting classified still images or unclassified still images from classified videos, from UAP reports, from a task force in the Pentagon, but they are. If none of this makes any sense to you, welcome to the club, because none of this makes any sense to me, which means there's a few possibilities here. Either George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell are lying about their sources, or the government is lying about them having these sources, and the government is also helping UFO grifters, or I shouldn't have said that, UFO investigators, let's call them that, monetize everyone's curiosity and make a boat ton of money selling stuff that's coming directly out of the Pentagon, which again leads me to question, why can't I get some of these leaks and sell them on my show? Why can't some of the other shows that cover these topics get these leaks and sell them on their shows? Why is it always Knapp and Corbell? Unless it's an op and they're useful idiots, right? Look up Project Mockingbird. Sometimes people think I'm crazy. Did you know that the CIA infiltrated every aspect of American media years and years ago? And then Barack Obama made it legal to literally use propaganda against the American people for whatever reason you want. So I don't trust the government, and I certainly don't trust UFO profiteering investigators. I'm trying to be more fair and balanced and not get personal, but it's easy. I get pissed off about this. I'm not getting any classified information, right? I'm not getting leaks of classified images that are unclassified. And how does that work? You got a still image from something you claim was a classified briefing, and you're saying it was unclassified. Who unclassified it? Lou Elizondo? I don't think so. He's not working there no more. Like, this is the minutia that they don't want you to think about. These are those little things that they don't want you to ask questions about. But we have to ask these questions because none of this makes any sense. And if I'm confused or unable to reach a reasonable, determination about something being truthful or not, I ask questions. That's natural. And all of us should ask questions. Everything here is muddying the waters. And we can talk for a moment about Elizondo, George Knapp, and Jeremy Corbell muddying the waters, right? Are they doing national security a favor with all their UFO profiteering? Or are they endangering national security? Because everybody's running around looking for aliens and not looking for Chinese spy balloons, Chinese drones, right? And by the way, a great deal of Jeremy Corbell's so-called alien spacecraft have been proven to be drones. Why aren't they talking about that? How many times are they going to get it wrong? Got it wrong on Bob Lazar. Got it wrong on the pyramid spaceships. That weren't pyramid spaceships. They were drones. Government admits that drones were swarming Navy ships, likely Chinese. So who's leaking possible Chinese drones swarming Navy ships to Jeremy Corbell so that he can make a boatload of money with George Knapp telling us they're aliens? For all we know, they could be working for the Chinese government. Do I believe that? Not really, but it's a possibility. If you were the Chinese government and you were surveilling or harassing Navy ships with your drones, wouldn't it be great if you could find two useful idiots who would run around claiming that they were spaceships, they were aliens that were swarming the ships, so that you could just continue to harass and surveil Navy ships with your Chinese drones? That possibility is just as probable as aliens, right? And what about all the times they get it all wrong, right? How many times has Corbell gotten it wrong? apparently every time, because every time he releases something, it gets debunked as not what he claimed it was, right? And he's still clinging to the pyramid spaceships, claiming he has all kinds of witnesses, and it was definitely not drones. That's what he says. But more images, you can look on our previous videos here. The Navy has released a video that is 100% what Jeremy was releasing. Looks like a green triangle, right? They say it was drones. Jeremy says it was spaceships, right? I don't understand. I don't understand how Jeremy can continue making money off of drone footage, right? And here, I will, right? Pyramid spaceships. And this is released direct from the Navy. Navy drone video. Jeremy Corbell lied.
On board USS Russell in position 3217 north, 11957 west, operating in SoCal hot period. Of course, 270 true, speeds 59, at time 04240 Zulu. We have visual of 4 probable unidentified drones.
Unidentified drones. And by the way, you notice how this one has the audio? That's another thing Corbell does, right? Why is there no audio to the videos that he released? Could it be because there's a Navy ship person saying unidentified drones in the audio, and he does not want you UFO people to hear that it's drones? Let's back that up, and we'll hear this person again say it's drones.
424 Zulu. We have visual of 4 probable unidentified drones with course unknown and speed unknown. Contacts are operating at a range of 1,000 yards and holding.
The person taking this film clearly stating that these are unidentified, but they're drones. Corbell stripped his video of the audio. The lie by omission, right? In order to sell the story, you can't have a guy in there saying it's drones. That'll ruin the whole alien story and the pyramid spaceships. If there's a Navy person taking the film saying it's drones, it was drones.
Tail numbers are unknown.
By the way, there were 2 videos released by the Navy that they called drones that were suspiciously similar to Jeremy Corbell's video, right? Except Jeremy Corbell's didn't have the audio. The audio was taken out. And this is the careful manipulation of data, the manicuring of the data in order to sell the story. Remember, we've talked about this time and time again. In order to sell a good UFO story, sometimes you have to do the lie by omission. What do I mean? Well, if there's a guy on the audio saying it's drones, you have to remove the audio and just show the video. Otherwise, it ruins selling the story. It's amazing that Jeremy Corbell is able to manipulate people's perceptions so easily like that. Just remove the audio. Just remove the audio and you won't know, right? You won't know that it's likely drones. Because again, if it's a drone in the footage, it's not going to help you sell the story. So we're going to get into this Jay Stratton as well. So the big story from Corbell is now they've got another government insider, another intelligence operative. And we've talked about this before. What happens when the United States government sends an intelligence operative into the UFO community? Well, we've seen it happen before in the form of Richard Doty. He drove a man absolutely crazy and some would say was responsible for the death of Paul Benowitz. But more than that, we've also seen what happens when an intelligence operative is sent into the UFO community. And I believe this Jay Stratton, who many people have been tracking for some time, trying to get information from or stories from, he's going to be sort of like the new Lou Elizondo. And one might ask themselves, we did a whole show on this, all the CIA and intelligence operatives' infiltration into the UFO community. Why? Why are there so many people that work for the CIA or the DIA or pick an alphabet soup agency? Why are there so many intelligence people suddenly involved in the UFO community? We've got John Ramirez, he's CIA. We've got Lou CIA Elizondo. I don't think we have confirmation he's CIA, but I believe he is. Lifetime intelligence officer. Now, and we've also got Gary Nolan, who claimed he worked for the CIA, right? And we've also now got this Jay Stratton. But let's not forget what intelligence operatives' jobs are, especially counterintelligence. And I think Dark Journalist sort of nailed that point much better than I could. So let's take a listen.
It's about truth. It's about disclosure. It's about transparency. And if it means that I don't get my day in the spotlight, then that's okay, because it's not about that. It never was about that. I didn't leave the Department of Defense because I wanted my day in the spotlight. I left the Department of Defense, ironically enough, to finish the very mission they gave me in the first place. I didn't ask for it. I'm not a UFO guy. I'm not a ufologist. I never have been. I never will be. I'm a counterterrorism and counterespionage guy. I do counterintelligence, counterinsurgencies. That's what I do. And it just so happens that in 2008, I was asked to apply those same skill sets into the UFO community. But I'm not a UFO guy. And so for me, it's all about the truth. Whether I'm hunting a terrorist or a spy or a UFO, the bottom line is the truth is the truth. I'm a counterterrorism and counterespionage guy. I do counterintelligence, counterinsurgencies. That's what I do. And it just so happens that in 2008, I was asked to apply those same skill sets into the UFO community. The bottom line is the truth is the truth. I'm a counterterrorism and counterespionage guy. I do counterintelligence, counterinsurgencies. That's what I do. And it just so happens that in 2008, I was asked to apply those same skill sets into the UFO community. The bottom line is the truth is the truth. It just so happens that in 2008, I was asked to apply those same skill sets into the UFO community. The bottom line is the truth is the truth. I'm a counterterrorism and counterespionage guy. I do counterintelligence, counterinsurgencies. That's what I do. The bottom line is the truth is the truth. I'm a counterterrorism and counterespionage guy. I do counterintelligence, counterinsurgencies. That's what I do. The bottom line is the truth is the truth. It just so happens that in 2008, I was asked to apply those same skill sets into the UFO community. The bottom line is the truth is the truth.
The Central Intelligence Agency is set up to deceive. That's what their job is, in fact. Counterintelligence, Lou, counterintelligence means I have to lie. You know, that's my job. So what is counterintelligence? What are some of the methods? That's something that the UFO field could study instead of people going off about, did Lou make a comment? You know, that doesn't go anywhere. What is that going to do for you? Who cares about Lou Elizondo ultimately, except as a pawn of the CIA threat motion? Otherwise, you know, it's just drivel, right? So, and how, you know, it could be anybody. They could have gotten someone else instead in that program and dressed them up for the part. I don't think, you know, it's not a special kind of assignment that they got for Lou. I just think that he kind of fit what they were doing, and they felt this is a guy who can pull it off. He's done a lot of counterintelligence. But I think what's important is, what is counterintelligence? Just in a nutshell, I need to deceive another country about what my activities are, militarily, espionage-wise, etc. And I need them to believe that something is happening that's totally different from what is actually happening. So I need to create a counter narrative to the truth. That's counterintelligence. I need to lie to get people to believe. So therefore, Elizondo has a lot of experience. He's a professional liar. That's just a fact. And you know, expecting the truth from people like that, or the Central Intelligence Agency, counterintelligence agents in general, is craziness. Whoever thought of such a thing? And you know, so the way they've rolled it out and packaged it up and put a lot of money behind it and the media behind it, yes. But you know, I think we've come past a phase, like, you know, we are all kind of graduating in our own awareness, and this is pretty obvious, you know. So this one is getting pretty wobbly.
Yeah, this one's getting pretty wobbly. And do you know what else is getting pretty wobbly? The continued infiltration into the UFO community of intelligence assets. That's what I'll call them, intelligence assets. John Ramirez, he's an intelligence asset. Gary Nolan, by his own admission, worked for the CIA. He must be an intelligence asset. Lou Elizondo, counterintelligence officer, he's an intelligence asset. Now we have a new person, and we've had James Lukatsky as well, another intelligence guy. We've had Christopher Mellon, an intelligence guy. We've got Steve Justice, Black Projects guy, intelligence guy. Things are getting really, really crazy, if you ask me. And I'll share my screen here. This is the CV or resume of this Jay Stratton. Office of Naval Intelligence, Senior Analyst, Nimitz Operational Intelligence Center. So he was involved directly with the Nimitz. Mr. Stratton entered senior executive service in September 2018. He has accumulated over 32 years of experience in progressively responsible positions with the United States Army, United States Air Force Reserve, and the U.S. Federal Civil Service. Mr. Stratton is currently the Senior Analyst, Nimitz Operational Intelligence Center, Office of Naval Intelligence. He has since been hired in the private sector by Radiance Technologies, right? And we'll get into that. It's another rabbit hole. As the center senior analyst, he is responsible for delivering comprehensive intelligence to Navy leadership and representing the Navy as a senior member of the intelligence community. Prior to his appointment, Mr. Stratton served as the Director of Intelligence with the Joint Warfare Analysis Center, Deputy Director, Executive Support with the Office of Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Information Warfare. This man is a specialist in information warfare. And now we're seeing him rolled into the UFO community. He's the guy who's going to tell us the truth about those UFOs. Do you see the problem here? How many times are they going to send an information warfare specialist into the UFO community? But we're all supposed to be thankful that George Knapp has got an interview. Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp have an interview with a literal information warfare specialist who's going to tell us the truth about UFOs, right? Great. Aerospace engineer with ONI, aerospace engineer flight test with Naval Air Systems Command. I do have to say, this man's resume is much more impressive than Lou Elizondo. Lou Elizondo was a desk jockey joke compared to this guy. Senior weapons system engineer with Mantech International Corporation, so he's played around in the private sector. A variety of active and reserve positions as an intelligence officer and foreign area officer with Air Force Reserve, including senior intelligence officer, air refueling wing, chief space technology with Defense Security Administration, Office of the Secretary of Defense for Policy, chief intelligence of the 459th Air Refueling Wing, detachment commander. This guy is steeped in intelligence operations. He holds a Bachelor of Science from Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University, Masters of Military Operational Art and Science from the Air Force University. Mr. Stratton holds IC Joint Duty Officer designation, formerly the IC officer designation. He is a veteran of Operations Desert Shield, Desert Storm, Joint Endeavor, Deny Flight, Deliberate Force, Allied Force, Southern Watch, Deny Flight, Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, and Noble Eagle. His personal military decorations include the Meritorious Service Medal, 2 awards, and Joint Commendations Medal, the Air Force Commendation Medal, 2 awards, and Air Force Achievement Medal. He has been awarded numerous joint and service unit commendations, both combat and garrison. He has had several expeditionary and campaign medals from his deployments. He was also awarded the DIA Director's Award and DIA Expeditionary Medal, Navy Meritorious Civilian Service Award, Central Intelligence Agency Meritorious Unit Commendation. There we have it. This man worked with and for the CIA. So we've got another spook infiltrating the UFO community. And who's helping him do that? George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, the same 2 guys who have been profiting from leaks from within the United States government that they claim are aliens or UFOs constantly. But we know better now that many of the things that Corbell and Knapp have been sharing are proven to be identified. Drones, many drones, right? And I get it. The drone explanation is not very sexy compared to aliens, right? Oh, it's just Chinese drones? Not much of a story. I think it's a story, but interesting that Jay Stratton is winning awards from the CIA. He's an award-winning CIA asset. I'm going to say that one more time. Jay Stratton is an award-winning CIA asset. Now, I don't know about you, but I agree with Dark Journalist in that the CIA's job is to lie to us and everyone, really. That's their job. Counterintelligence, lying, secret ops, spying, information warfare. That's what the CIA does best. And this man is an award-winning CIA intelligence asset. And now, suddenly, he's coming forward into the UFO community, courtesy of George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. And he is going to tell us the truth about those aliens. No, he's not. What we see now, or I believe what we are seeing, is a retooling of that original 2016 CIA infiltration operation spearheaded by Elizondo and Mellon and others. Now along comes this guy, Jay Stratton, who is an award-winning CIA analyst, CIA asset, award-winning CIA intelligence asset. And according to people, some would say stupid people, like George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell, he's going to tell us the truth about his time investigating UFOs for the United States government. I'm sorry, but I beg to differ. Now, I've got an awful lot more to share with you concerning this whole breaking story. And we've brought you a lot of exclusive information tonight, but we do want to get into this video and into the actual interview portion. So let's do that. But before I do, I want to remind everybody that this sharing of the Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp interview of this man, Jay Stratton, is fair use. We'll be critiquing the video we're sharing. We'll be discussing it with the live chat. And by the way, I apologize. So much information to share tonight. We'll be checking in with the live chat as soon as I can. And thank you to all you kind and generous benefactors. We'll be reading every single super chat as soon as we've concluded the information. I've got so much to share with you. And it's important information that I think that people should see before they start doing cartwheels about George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell in this new interview of an award-winning CIA intelligence officer. All right, let's get into the video. And by the way, lawyer letters are standing by for people like Jeremy Corbell or George Knapp or anybody else who would like to copyright claim or strike us. And I have copied the video off just to prevent it from being, from ads playing, right? So this is fair use. This is a transformative work. We'll be discussing and critiquing the video. If someone should happen to copyright claim or strike me, I will file an appeal immediately with our lawyer letters, which have won 22 out of 22 false copyright claims and strikes. And in some cases, those letters and our filing of an appeal have resulted in the person who filed the claim getting the strike to revert to their channel. So just fair warning, we believe in our right to do this. And let's see, it is, I want to see, we don't want to play this entire thing. We want to play mostly the interview. So we're going to fast forward to about 24 minutes in. The first 24 minutes is largely these guys claiming they've got all kinds of information that they're going to be sharing in the coming year. In other words, make sure that you, you know, help them monetize your curiosity, right? All right, we'll just go to about a minute before they start playing the actual interview. That's
Here
the
we
meat of
go.
it.
And then I was like, oh no, man, we're not recording in a hotel room. I was like so upset about that. You know,
Yeah, he was upset about that because the last time he recorded in a hotel room, it was probably that anonymous guy.
visually, but we had to do it kind of private. We needed to make sure that it was.
And I'll check in with the live
the
chat while we do
information
this.
was well documented. You know, another thing that so when we started the interview, something that Jay said kind of right away that was so interesting to me was that OSAP, from the very onset, was technological. It was technology.
Yeah, he could say OSAP was technology, but only reports that we got from Bigelow were about werewolves and poltergeists and ghosts and demons. Where is the technology, Jeremy? This man can't get his story straight.
It was about discovery of disruptive technologies. And you look at all the DIRDs and the reports, and obviously they're thinking forward-looking, 30, 50 years from now, what could be a disruptive technology, no matter where it's from? What could be a disruptive technology?
Well, that's something any government would do. And by the way, I personally hate when somebody like Corbell says that somebody said something, because we never get the confirmation. In other words, he's saying that this guy Jay said all this stuff about the OSAP program, but we don't get confirmation of that from him in the interview. So how do we know what this person is telling Corbell?
And then he said, but look, where the evidence led is that there were other things that we learned. There was a disruptive technology aim, but that there were a lot of other things they learned when they were studying things like the ranch. So that really,
you got to throw in the ranch, because he wants to continue to make money from his terrible documentary filled with fantastical stories and not a shred of physical, actual evidence. And of course, Knapp has his book, which he claims is based on all kinds of collected physical evidence, but shows none of it in the book, right? You got to plug your previous projects to the stupid people.
threw me for a loop that, something like OSAP came in with the idea of identifying future threats and then realized, wow, there's a lot more going on. He talked about.
Yeah, there is a lot more going on, like werewolves and dino beavers, according to some of those OSAP early reports, right?
That in his interview with us.
So everybody's phone is off? That's just as far as ringer?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, mine's off.
And alarms are off?
The cameras are on. Just giving this little AB comment marker.
I love how Corbell always acts like everything's so official. He's just in a motel room with this guy filming, right? But he's going to make a big production out of it.
Jay, have you done an on-camera interview before? Have you done interviews before? This is the first. I mean, your world is the black world, classified stuff.
Right.
Can you give me broad strokes of your career, the highlights, and kind of secure?
And also suspicious to me is why does Corbell and Knapp get all of these exclusives of these government people, right? Why don't they go to 60 Minutes? Why isn't this guy going to the New York Times with the information that he has to share? Why isn't he going to the Washington Post? He's going to go to UFO guys, Corbell and Knapp, who have been pushing a convicted pimp fake scientist that claimed he worked on flying saucers for years? It doesn't make sense to me. We just read that guy's resume. And despite what I think about him being a possible infiltrator or part of an op to infiltrate or influence or monitor or some might say weaponize the UFO community, he has an incredibly impressive past and resume. It doesn't make sense that you're finally going to spill the beans and you go to Corbell and Knapp. You don't go to the New York Times. Elizondo went straight to the New York Times, and his resume was not 1% as impressive as this man's history and resume. So why not go to NBC News, MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the LA Times, some reputable news organization? You go to Knapp and Corbell instead?
What program you worked on?
Sure. I started military. I was a full-time reservist with the Air Force, and then I moved up to Maryland to work at Pax River to do weapons integration with the F-18 flight test out of NavAir. And from there, I went to the Office of Naval Intelligence, where.
And again, intelligence. Why are so many intelligence officers infiltrating or being pushed into the UFO community? It's very, very suspicious to me.
I was recruited to be an aerospace engineer, working with them to look at, really apply the blue knowledge, as we call it, and apply it to the red and potential adversaries, and write up reports on what I think foreign capabilities can do or not do. Right?
In a sense, reverse engineering.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And you take that into DIA. I went over to the Defense Intelligence Agency to work in the Defense Warning Office.
So then he goes from Naval Intelligence to the Defense Intelligence Agency. Again, this guy is steeped a lifelong history of intelligence agencies that he has worked for. It would be very fair to call him an intelligence specialist.
Where I was applying the same.
And Moody Mongol is very upset that Corbell has been sick for your benefit, right? He's been sick for his wallet's benefit, Moody Mongol. So, I really don't get it, right? Stratton looks like he missed nap time, low energy. Yeah, he's not quite as, I'll give him this. Elizondo is much more charismatic, but remember, Elizondo in early appearances was awkward and low energy and not very charismatic. Maybe this guy will get better at these media appearances as we go. And let me know, what do you think in the live chat? Is this guy going to go do 300 friendly UFO podcasts next? Maybe.
Same knowledge, but at a higher level, and more kind of orchestrating the intel community at that point. There's a term we use, validation. Whereas if you're building an F-22,
CIA teddy bear,
a Joint Strike Fighter, you're really kind of designing that to counter a potential threat, and that potential threat needs to be a validated threat, because what we can't have happen is a Lockheed Martin or a Boeing.
Corbell strap Lazar to the bed in the motel room.
Money against a threat that they say exists, or the government needs to say it exists. So it's kind of a contractual thing of you're building to the validated threat, and that's what I did at the Defense Intelligence.
Yeah, and by the way, there's a very troubling quote that he gives in this. I saved a quote that he gave. In this interview, he says, quote, "If the Air Force really wants a program, they might go to NASIC and say, we really need a threat to drive that program," unquote. That means that he's essentially admitting that parts of the United States government need a threat in order to get funding to drive a program. Does that sound familiar? Sounds familiar to me. It's called Elizondo. Driving a threat. Oh, we've got to find out what this threat is in our skies. Suddenly, after the Elizondo CIA op, there's billions of dollars in funding being thrown around for UFO research within the United States government. Again, here's the quote from Jay Stratton. "If the Air Force really wants a program, they might go to NASIC and say, we really need a threat to drive that program."
Agency, along with also having a science and technical intelligence hat with the Defense Warning Office to look across the spectrum at technologies, specifically air and space, that are leading edge, things that could be disruptive and challenge us in the future. You know, we're looking 10, 20, and sometimes 50 years out, depending on the topic, and trying to provide the Department of Defense and
again, here he's talking about foreign threats and adversaries. This is where UFO people get tripped up. He's not talking about aliens. He's talking about foreign threats, technological advancements of our enemy countries like China and Russia. He's not talking about alien threats.
And across the intel community, a better understanding of some of those potential disruptive threats so that we could get ahead of the game and counter them.
And when you're at DIA, I'm ignorant of this stuff, but you were a Navy guy who then goes to work for DIA. Does that mean you're a Navy guy within DIA, or you're always a Navy guy?
So when I transitioned to Office of Naval Intelligence, I became civil service. So I'm a Navy employee with the National Intel community. So your service centers, Office of Naval Intelligence, NASIC, National Air and Space Intel Center, the Missile and Space Intel Center is a subcomponent of the DIA.
These guys love alphabet soups and alphabet soup agencies, and they love acronyms. I don't know why, but they all love acronyms.
That's here in Huntsville. And then you have the MCIA, which is the Marine Corps Intelligence Activity, and then finally the National Ground Intel Center at Charlottesville. Those are the four what we call service centers, and now you're going to have one for the Space Force, co-located at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Oh, that's interesting. The Space Force Intelligence Center is going to be where? Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I wonder if it's going to be in Hangar 18, right? Just an interesting side note. There's so many mythologies and stories coming out of Hangar 18. And here's another one. Space Force's intelligence services will be located at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Those are service centers that support the analysis that supports the Navy or supports the Marine Corps, supports the Army. But in reality, they are all funded by the Director of National Intelligence now, the ODNI, as national intel funded billets that are able to support. So, you know, people refer to ONI, the Office of Naval Intelligence, as the Navy's Intel Center. The reality is it's the National Maritime Intel Center, where we are the threat at the maritime. And when you think of Navy too, right, you got to remember.
Yeah, and one thing that struck me about this interview is not very much UFO information, but an awful lot of background and stuff. They're going to try to string this guy out. I bet you that they have 2 or 3 hours of an interview with this guy that they're going to be slowly dripping for the next 6 months.
That Navy is the Navy, but the Navy also has an Air Force, and the Navy has an Army, and the Navy's Army has an Air Force, right? So it's a big service. So with that, ONI has a big footprint and a big concern. But in all of that, the key in bringing up that the ODNI funds the 4 service centers is very important, because back to the threat that justifies the building of new systems. And
yeah, it's timed for a UFO conference. Absolutely.
They might go to NASIC.
Absolutely. And thank you, Lord Ludicrous. We'll read these all when we're
program.
finished,
and we are
right?
funded by the national side of the house. So we can say, well, we don't take orders from the Air Force in that regard. We take orders from the Navy. So we can, you know, this is the assessment, right? That's driven out of trade craft,
assessment.
and that's the answer.
It's going to be independent.
It's very independent. And a lot of people don't realize that. You know, they look at those service intel centers as kind of parts of the Air Force, parts of the Army. They are on paper, but
yeah, no, they are their own entity. That I would agree with. They are there to support whatever branch of the service they are under, but they're their own entity.
In reality, you know, the majority of their budget comes from the national.
You have high security clearances. You see sensitive stuff, as sensitive as it gets.
All through my career. So from there, you know, DIA went back to ONI to be.
Yeah, and somebody asked if this guy is legit. He's a real person. We've read his resume. He's a real lifetime intelligence officer with various different forms of government agencies and you know, armed services, including the Navy, the Air Force, and more.
The head of air warfare. So I was the deputy initially. Then the fleeted up, as we say, to be the director of air warfare for ONI. When I first went back, I had everything that touches air in the Navy. So science and technical side, as well as the operational and tactics side, we call it. SPEAR is kind of the nickname for, or the name that organization uses.
Again, with the acronym, SPEAR stands for something.
We've got a history all the way back to Desert Storm. If you watch Top Gun originally, Charlie, that's briefing the MiGs, she was based on a SPEAR analyst. So the group that I led has that kind of pedigree of talking about how capabilities operate. So, your National Intel Centers at NASIC, for example, right, can talk about a Russian fighter. Just throw an example. Everybody knows we look at Russia. A Russian fighter, talk about how fast it flies, how high it can fly, based on their assessments, right?
And again, this is intelligence information that is gathered for the benefit of the services that need that intelligence. If you're an Air Force or Navy pilot and you may be going against MiGs, it's helpful to know their capabilities.
What SPEAR does is we get into the head of the pilots and we try to talk about how they're going to fly that aircraft. One of the analogies I've used for years is hockey players, right? Every hockey player has to know how to skate. Some of them are better than the others, but it's really about the game, right? It's about everything else but skating. Skating comes second. So if you think
New
about
Lou or Lou
flight, so
2.0, that's correct. That's what I believe.
How they're deploying that, right? And guys with my background can watch somebody flying an airplane and go,
yeah, he's definitely interesting.
He's
definitely
whoever,
interesting
right?
guy.
That's probably an American. So, you really kind of can recognize some of the techniques and the way they do things.
A mutual friend of ours was trying to describe how high up you went, and he compared you to a 2-star admiral. That wasn't accurate exactly. You weren't comfortable with that. But how would I explain to our audience how far up the rung you went?
Yeah, and now we get to hear a little bit about just how deep down the rabbit hole this guy has been.
Well, sure, it's right in his, and I didn't want to really push any buttons with that. So from ONI, I went to the Pentagon and I worked in N2N6, which is the headquarters level for naval intelligence. The director of naval intelligence is dual hatted, is what we call the N2N6, which just the OpNav office code. At that point, I was still a 15, and then I went off to be the J2, the director of intelligence for the Joint Warfare Analysis Center at Dahlgren.
And that's a very high level position.
And then from there, I was promoted initially to what we call Tier 1, Defense Intelligence Senior Level, Tier 1, which is as a senior executive position. And then was, within 8 months or so, I was bumped up to a Tier 2, which is where the 2-star comes in. It's an equivalency. Throughout my career, it's been, are you really equal, right? We always throw out GS-15s or colonels or, there's an equivalency, but you don't go busting around the Pentagon saying, "Oh, I'll rank you," or So
yeah, and it's interesting that this Luke 2.0, if that is indeed what he is, his experience and his sort of CV here dwarfs Elizondo. Elizondo would be literally like a pencil pusher compared to this guy and his experience in the intelligence community.
Right. Yeah. But you do have the gravitas, if that's a good word to use. That's not a good word to use. The kind of the peer level, right? So, if I go into a meeting,
I agree there, Walter Bosley Channel.
I kind of have a peer level, so I'm not put in the corner, And typically in my meetings, I was there representing someone higher than me as well. Sometimes I'm representing myself, but sometimes I'm there representing someone higher than me. So then I inherit
quantum jiu-jitsu. Yeah,
with their name
absolutely.
So I'm speaking for that person. I wouldn't be sent to that meeting if I couldn't speak for that person. And a lot of that in the Pentagon is resource sponsoring. So, I said in many
that he's mentioned the Pentagon and working within the Pentagon multiple times. Again, this man's resume dwarfs Lou Elizondo's.
Tables where I was representing the resource sponsor. And that gets attention because acquisition programs at your NAVAIR, your NAVC, your Air Force Materiel Command, those are all built on requirements back to the threat, right? And those requirements are paid for by resource sponsors. So the resource sponsor says, we need a new jammer. And from that resource sponsor, requirements are driven and then capabilities are built. And they go to whoever can build that capability, whether that's NAVAIR or that's whoever that might be, right? So
interesting. So you need a threat to drive the funding. Again, and he mentioned it earlier in the interview with the quote that they needed a threat to drive the program.
So in those circles, you get to know a lot of people, and that helped me later to really kind of know who I need to reach out to.
Can you describe for me at what point UFOs, they were called then, UAPs now. At what point that kind of got on your radar screen? Was it something you had at least a casual interest in growing up, or it came a point in your professional career that it landed on your desk?
Yeah, every time I've done it.
And it's interesting that most of these guys claim they have zero interest in UFOs and they got pushed into it.
Anything related to UAP or UFO has been my job. And what I mean by that, I didn't really have a passion growing up. I didn't have all the books. I didn't watch all the TV shows. I stepped into a job.
Here we go again, just like Elizondo. Zero
Agency
interest in
where,
UFOs
some
before
things
being
came across
thrust
the desk, again, thinking
into a
technologies
job
and other things where I
dealing
needed
with them.
to really kind of dig in and understand potentials. And
nice
those
orange pillow.
potentials, I kept an open mind, a skeptic mind, whatever you want to call it, looking for something that could answer this in all the means that I had to chase that. But there were definitely some times where we really couldn't close the loop. And with that,
we might have some clue here, because you're right. There's just too many, just an incredible amount of intelligence connections with this guy.
Realized that something needed to be done about it.
We should maybe just fill in our listeners about how Jay Stratton ended up studying UFOs and related mysteries, because he made it clear to us in our conversation with him, he's not a UFO guy. He's
Have we heard this before? I'm not a UFO guy. Never was, never will be. I'm not a ufologist. I'm not a ufologist. Thank you, Steve Nicholson, for your kindness, generosity, and support. We'll be reading all the super chats after our presentation here.
He's not sitting at home watching UFO videos on YouTube. He'd watch guitar playing videos on YouTube, but not UFOs. He didn't have a whole bunch of books. He didn't have an abiding interest in it, but he ended up moving from Office of Naval Intelligence over to DIA.
And I don't understand, like, he asked the question, why can't the person, Jay Stratton, tell us how he got involved with UFOs? They have to cut away and explain it for him? Very curious and suspicious to me.
And became an acquaintance and colleague of Dr. Jim Lakatsky, who was the creator of, eventually became the creator of the OSAP program, what became OSAP. And Lakatsky had an interest in Skinwalker Ranch, in the book that Colin and I.
Gotta have an orange pillow on a porn set, for sure.
We'll let Jay Stratton explain how that process went.
I can remember telling our mutual friend, Dr. Lakatsky, right, that some of this stuff I don't, and I hate saying the word now because I have so much more background, but the word believe, right? The belief isn't there necessarily that I'm seeing what I think was being reported, right? So that evolution between 2006 and then to 2008, at that time, I had to go to Iraq, just a normal deployment.
Yeah, he was deeply involved in Iraq and Desert Storm and Desert Shield.
Realize that civilians
operations
are on the hook, just like military. In 2006 and 7 timeframe, as we were trying to think about this problem set, Jim Lakatsky says, "Hey, basically, I made the comment something to the effect of, I'd love to see one with my own eyes." And
here's his entry into the world of UFOs, and it comes through Lakatsky, somebody else that George Knapp has milked for money stories to sell for quite some time now. Now he's got a new cow. This is Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp's new cow to milk for stories to sell.
And what I meant by one is a nuts and bolts craft, right? Because in my mind, that's what I'm a technology aerospace guy. I'm thinking the craft that I can go touch and put my hands on, right? Or I'd like to see one of these things in person. And I was getting ready to go, and Jim was tracking the ranch, and he kind of made a joke, or I don't need to say it's a joke, about a comment of, "Hey, there's one place in the world we might see one of these things."
Let's all trust this intelligence guys.
And I throw the book in my backpack and literally took it to Iraq with me. So I read that book in the green zone and in my downtime. And, before I even got back, we're, talking and things are proceeding along. But so I come back and at that time we were at initial.
So he takes one book with him to Iraq. He reads one UFO book and suddenly he's all chips in. Again, I find that a little suspicious for a lifetime intelligence guy. And it could very well be that this backstory is manufactured.
Actually, the Defense Warning Office and DIA was at the DIAC, we call it, the Defense Intelligence Analysis Center at Bowling Air Force Base. Now, granted, I was flight test back in the day as Pax River Naval Air Station, which is in St. Mary's County, Maryland. So I still live there, and I never sold my house throughout this whole process because I liked where I lived, but I was making really terrible commutes. So I agreed to work at the Defense Intelligence Agency and made that commute. And in the process, they transferred us 14 miles through the city to another place. And I can remember the quote to this day. It's only 14 miles, Jay, but it's
14 miles, yeah.
14 miles of DC hell, right? Going through the commute there. So anyway, we end up in this place. It's called Clarendon.
Yeah, and that's the truth about cities. I once worked someplace that was 10 miles from my home, and it would take me 90 minutes to get through traffic for that 10-mile commute.
It was really killing me physically, you know, just the drive every day and the stress of that. I love the job, but the stress of getting there and home. And in 2008, ONI offered me the position to come back and be the Deputy Director of Air Warfare, which was a lot better commute. And I loved ONI. You know, I kind of grew up there in the intel community. So I took that job and left. You know, Dr. Lukaski stayed in touch, but that contract, you know, it was already in the beginnings. And then in 2009, if I remember my timeline right, he put it on Fed Biz Ops to be bid, and they had two.
Here we hear some details of the bidding, right?
Bidders that I remember.
Two bidders.
One being Bob Bigelow, you know, Bigelow.
Well, who was the other one?
Aerospace, and the other being a company that I don't remember the name of. But
yeah, isn't that interesting? Everybody continually says that it wasn't a no-bid contract that Bigelow got to study his own ranch for $22 million. But nobody can tell us who else bid. And in fact, some FOIA requests have revealed that no one else bid. So where are all these people who keep saying that there was multiple bidders? We've got, I believe, Travis Taylor and multiple other people, including this Jay Stratton, saying there was multiple bidders to get that contract. The only bidder we're sure of, however, is Bob Bigelow. And there's no paperwork, no evidence that anyone else bid.
It was a company that did a lot of business with DIA and kind of in that contract world. You know, they you have your favorite customers and your favorite, but there were more than one bid.
And no funny business that you can see. It wasn't
none at all.
Yeah, isn't that great that he's here to confirm for us that it wasn't a sweetheart deal, no bid contract? But nobody can produce. Where's his bid then? Where's the other company's bid? There would be paperwork for that. Already suspicious of this guy. He's lying through his teeth, apparently, because people have checked. There's no paperwork of another bidder. None. Zero. And if there was another bidder, there would be paperwork.
No. And I know all of the leadership, right? I worked there, worked for them. They're the most straightforward, honest people as you can imagine. And they could not, I could never in a million years imagine them taking any kind of favoritism into account. I guarantee you they went over everything very detailed and made a decision based on the best response to the proposal that they had.
They fire up this program. Bigelow's organization springs in action. They create these 38 papers. You know, we've heard.
Yeah, we get a whole 38 papers for $22 million. That's all we got, 38 papers.
Described as junk science. Do you recall how those papers were received when they came out?
So what I remember, so Lukatsky, Dr. Lukatsky, that was driving that, and our colleague, Dr. Hal Putoff, kind of led the charge.
Oh, there's Putoff, right?
Charge there, supporting Bigelow Aerospace. And the idea of them, in my mind, was awesome, right? I'll have this reference document that I can always go back to on all these different technologies.
What technologies? The dino beavers? What technologies? There was no papers about technology. There was papers about ghosts and goblins and demons and werewolves and nonsense.
They did come back being really, I'll say, academic, right? Very high level academic.
I've read those papers, and the last thing I would describe them as is high level academic.
Whereas we're dealing with the Defense Intelligence Agency, that predominance is a liberal arts degree, and their war on terrorism was hot and heavy, right? We're hiring people who are experts in in that culture and hiring some people just because they speak Arabic, and all these things. We weren't hiring the best and brightest engineers at the time because it wasn't the need of the DIA.
So the DIA just wants to hire people with liberal arts degrees who speak Arabic. I guess it makes sense if you're trying to take over the Arabic world.
So if you take all of that into context and you realize your average DIA analyst is going to look at that with their, poli-sci or history background and go, what is this, right? Whereas other folks out AFRL and folks, people with the educational background will look at it and go, oh, this is interesting. But they may say some of it is junk science because it is bleeding edge, and that's what we wanted. We wanted to know.
I wouldn't describe it as bleeding edge. Pardon me.
What they thought as the leading expert on a potential technology, what would be pushing the edge of that envelope? Because I needed something to point back to.
He keeps talking about potential technology, but those reports were garbage. There was, I don't understand his continual talk about technology.
If I saw something in any kind of reporting, I could say, look, based on Dr. XYZ that wrote this report, that's significant.
Yeah, based on doctors like Hal Puthoff, the Scientologist who believes in Xenu, right? And psychic powers, the guy who wasted how much time and how much money declaring Uri Geller a real and true superpowered psychic when he was using magic tricks. Hal Puthoff is an idiot.
Seeing what else was produced by OSAP over the 27 months. I mean, it's a lot of stuff, but a lot of it is, some of it is pretty weird. I mean, the Skinwalker angle. I've heard it said now, people who want to denigrate the program, that it was nonsense. It got off on all this weird paranormal stuff.
And it did get off on all this weird paranormal stuff. And it was largely nonsense. That's what we got for a $22 million. And we saw Stephen Greenstreet even highlight that people were getting drunk and faxing Bigelow fake stories about paranormal events on the ranch that never took place. Some of that stuff ended up in these reports.
That was never what it was supposed to be. And it was a waste of money. And that's why it was canceled, because it got into these weird topics that are just too far out. In general, can you address the work that was done by the reports that you've read?
They're asking him to defend his buddy's program that bilked the American taxpayers out of $22 million for nonsense. Just so we're all clear.
That haven't been made public, whether it's worthwhile or not.
So
were those worthwhile? I don't think so.
I'm back at ONI at this point, right? So my day-to-day interaction with the contract and with Bass was not there. I didn't have that day-to-day. However, Dr. Lukatsky and I, again, he wants to pick my brain on things that are being seen, and I'm still in a role where I'm concerned about threats to aviation and those types of things, right? So it's good to keep me and the team that I had and my larger Rolodex of experts across the intel community.
Remains to be seen.
So it's good to keep me up to speed. The heart and soul of OSAP was those technology areas, and the heart and soul of those technologies areas is preventing a disruptive technology.
Yeah, okay, but where is the reports of disruptive technology? Where is the reports of technology at all?
The other stuff that came out of that was collateral. If you go to the ranch to see a nuts and bolts craft that you might be able to put your hands on, and you see other things that you can't explain, no one to this day can explain. Is it something to do with the technology? Is it something, is it an effect on the body? Is it something that's driving you to see things that aren't really there? All those things needed to be studied. And again, throughout this whole process, I'm learning.
Yeah, and he's saying that the technology component of this program was the most important. But why do we not see any paperwork about the technology element of this program? All we get is a bunch of nonsense, pseudoscience, gobbledygook, science fiction, cobbled together garbage about dino beavers and werewolves and orbs and demons and ghosts and poltergeists. And where is the technology?
All of this comes into the forefront later with the bigger task force, and knowing what I needed and knowing the kinds of expertise that I needed, and that true diversity may not mean, whether you're from a certain country or your ethnic background or anything else. Your true diversity maybe just purely the way you think based background that is kind of an asymmetric approach.
Asymmetric approach, spoken like a true intelligence officer.
To the technology area, right? For example, hiring a biologist to look at the terrorist network and the thread that of radical Islam and how it spreads like a virus, right? You take that same mindset to other things, and
I mean, I guess that's a valid argument, but I don't get. I think that the United States government wastes all kinds of money, and I think the United States government wasted $22 million giving a sweetheart deal to Bob Bigelow to study his own ranch, right? Can I get $22 million to study my house? I think it's haunted.
the various phenomenon that we're seeing. You know, it's important to bring in that kind of diversity. It's just purely the way they think. And I always like to bring in folks with that kind of background that didn't have a military background, because now they're not in this box, in this viewpoint that they're always trying to mold things into. They're coming at you with, well, have you thought about this, right? And that,
I mean, that I'll agree with him on. It's always good to bring in people with other viewpoints, other belief systems, if you're trying to solve a mystery.
is where the power of those papers come from too, because then you've got to be something to point back to say, hey, take a look at this. What do you think? Right? You know, to another academic, or and how can you how could you see that applied?
So Jay,
yeah. So what we get is, for all the hype, we get a 2-minute video on KLS, George Knapp's local Las Vegas news station. And then we get like not even 20 minutes of an actual interview, half of which is this guy's history in intelligence agencies, very little to do with actual UFOs or anything else. But Knapp and Corbell are going to spin this into this big groundbreaking interview, right?
Jay Stratton is not a UFO guy. He's
and again, not a UFO guy. We just heard Lou Elizondo claiming he was not a UFO guy, right? This is a big problem, right? Almost as if they've got a set script and they're sticking to it. Is this Lou Elizondo 2.0?
I don't know if you say a career intelligence officer, but ONI to DIA, the UFO thing hits at him and he realizes there's a void there. We need to do this right. There are potential threats.
Does any of this sound familiar? This is the exact narrative pushed by supporters of Lou Elizondo. Oh, Lou Elizondo was never a UFO guy, but he saw that there was a real threat and it wasn't being taken seriously. Now we've got Corbell and Knapp repeating the same script, but for a different intelligence officer who's going to tell us the truth about these things now, right? Kind of like Lou did. All Lou did is fill his pockets of UFO dollars and run, right?
We don't know where they're coming from. So I'm going to create the UAP task force. And we're going to...
Well, now we find out that we do know where a lot of those UFOs were coming from. They were coming from China, right? But Corbell and Knapp didn't even assess that possibility or bring it up, because Chinese spy balloons and Chinese drones don't sell quite as good as aliens sell, right?
Look at this in a badass way. And we're going to be clear with the American public. He also made sure to put that in. We're going to be clear with the American public. He did that for a while, and then he had a break, right? It wasn't his job, and during a time he was doing intelligence in another field. Are we up to that point in the story?
So the public.
I love these guys explaining their new intelligence asset that they're going to milk for UFO dollars, right? Where's the UFOs? This guy barely mentioned UFOs during this 20-minute interview. They are going to drip, drip, drip out little bits from this guy for the next 6 months. Mark my words.
The UFO public is aware of the programs that Jay Stratton was involved in. We've mentioned the names of those. What they don't know is they're already familiar with some of his work. For example, in 2018, I released through KLAS and Mystery Wire a 13-page report about the Tic Tac incident. Tic Tac occurred.
Yeah, and he was an intelligence officer on the Nimitz, so he would have been directly involved in that and had direct knowledge. Why didn't he ask him, what was the Tic Tac? What was your assessment? No, we get, for 12 minutes, we get to hear about this guy's history in the intelligence community and all the promotions that he got and how bad his commute
in
was.
2004, your friend Commander Dave Fravor is the aviator for the Navy that had the direct encounter with this strange object. 5 years later, when OSAP is born, the first case they start looking at is Tic Tac. And the person they came to rely on to write the first report, an investigative report on Tic Tac, was Jay Stratton. I released that report in 2018.
Yeah, interesting. He has been intertwined with many of these things, including OSAP and James Lukatsky and Hal Puthoff and the Nimitz encounter. And interesting that he does have those connections, right?
18. It had no insignia on it. It wasn't signed. It doesn't say who wrote it, but we could say now he's the guy who wrote it. And it was great work. He talked to all these aviators and different people who are involved in it. It is one report that then became a much bigger report that has not been made public, but eventually will be someday. So that's one bit of work that he did. Second thing that
So the report's not been made public, but George Knapp again has it, right? He knows it'll be released someday.
Public would know about is the DIRDs. There are 38 of these DIRDs. Defense Intelligence Reference Documents that's the acronym, what it means. And 38 of those reports were prepared for the OSAP program. And as Jay explained to us when we met with him, it was meant to be a baseline to establish what a baseline is for science and technology.
If that's their baseline, it's terrible
Specific
work.
kinds of categories, and to project what it might be 50 years from now. And, I remember when I made some of those, when you and I released some of those reports, people were griping and moaning, oh, this is sci-fi, it's nonsense, it's garbage science. Well, it's not.
It is garbage science. It's not. Show it to a scientist, George Knapp. And I mean a real scientist, not a convicted pimp fake scientist like Bob Lazar. Okay? Show a real scientist those reports. It's garbage fake science. It's pseudoscience nonsense, akin to Scientology. And who was heavily involved in those? Hal Puthoff, lifelong high-ranking Scientology member.
That's not how it was received by the defense industry. They loved those reports because it was really good work, and they needed a baseline.
Oh yeah, we love these reports about dino beavers and poltergeists at Skinwalker Ranch that we spent $22 million on. Come on, George Knapp. It's getting a little deep in here. I need waders.
Which they could compare when they had UFO cases to analyze. Is this ours? Could it be ours? Could we duplicate that 50 years from now? And many times the answer was no.
Yeah. And again, we get the stories. George Knapp, king of stories. I have a few more things to share because Jay Stratton is not just a lifelong intelligence officer. He's also now working for the private sector. And here is a clickbait garbage article written by George Knapp. Is this company working with alien technology in Nevada? Radiance Technologies. It'd be interesting to let you know that Radiance Technologies is rapidly trying to hire back engineering engineers. Why would they be doing that? I don't know, but it's somewhat probably related to this whole narrative that has been pushed by people like George Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, and Ross Coulthard, and others that are all UFO profiteers making lots of money telling people that there are back engineering programs to back engineer alien technology. And this is a perfect example of George Clickbait Knapp. Is this company working with alien technology in Nevada? The short answer, no. But they would if they got asked to. So that makes this clickbait just perfectly okay. But if somebody possessed a UFO and asked scientists from Radiance to take it apart to figure out how it works, would they take that contract? Tim Tinsley, president of Radiance Technology, says yes. Why not? I'm waiting for one of those. That's the whole impetus of the article. That this person at Radiance Technology, by the way, Radiance Technology have also hired Travis Taylor of Skinwalker and Ancient Aliens fame. And they hired John or Jay Stratton, who we just saw this interview from. And Radiance Technology has just been awarded a $4 billion with a B contract. Interesting. For more than 3 decades, Nellis Air Force Base has been rumored to be the home of mysterious materials of unknown origin. The story, dismissed as folklore by military agencies and defense contractor, goes that super secret program housed in or near Nevada's Area 51 military base has been attempting to reverse engineer alien technology. Yeah, he knows all about that story. It was brought to us by a fake convicted pimp, fake scientist, who was never a scientist, who had absolutely no evidence or no proof of his claims. And George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell made millions of dollars pushing that fake story. Now it seems there may be some truth to the folklore, as key congressional committee have received closed-door briefings alleging the rumors are true. And again, what congressional committees have received closed-door briefings alleging that the rumors are true? And again, all of these UFO profiteering hucksters and UFO celebrities back each other up. Who else said that? Dr. Eric Davis, maybe Hal Puthoff, right? Why can't I interview those people to confirm that they're hearing what George Knapp is stating as fact? Could it be because this comes from the land of make-believe? Maybe. And by the way, just to be clear, do I believe that the government may be in possession of recovered technology? Absolutely. Do I believe it's alien? That's a lot more of a maybe from me. The government recovers things all the time. They have a foreign technology division at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, whose sole job it is to analyze foreign technology. So sure, we have recovery programs, but is it alien technology or foreign adversary technology? That's the big question. Radiance Technology isn't able to confirm the allegations, but the company has positioned itself just in case. Months ago, it announced the hiring of a reverse engineering specialist, longtime Navy intelligence official Jay Stratton, who was formerly the head of the Pentagon's Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon, or UAP task force. Stratton urged Radiance, and see, this is where it's all connected. Stratton urged Radiance to hire Dr. Travis Taylor, who worked with him as a chief scientist for the UAP task force. When Radiance announced the hiring of 2 veterans of UFO research, the news releases didn't hide the connection, pointedly mentioning their UFO credentials. But is this company worried about the perception they might be reverse engineering UFOs? No, we provide customer solutions, Tinsley explains. Whatever our customers want us to work on and support, that's what we'll do. And by the way, they were just awarded a $4 billion with a B, back in August. This Radiance Technology, who employs this Jay Stratton and Dr. Travis Taylor, was awarded a $4 billion defense contract. Taylor, for his part, isn't saying what he and Stratton are working on, but he makes it clear that they're hoping to tackle. Jay and I are working on growing the capabilities, doing reverse engineering of foreign materials, Taylor explains. If we were to get something to reverse engineer, we would absolutely want to do that. Again, I just don't see that this is proof of anything. This narrative of alien crash retrievals has been pushed for the past year or two very heavily by a lot of UFO celebrities, all of which make money pushing that narrative, all of which have yet to provide a single shred of actual evidence that that is indeed taking place. Do I believe that it may be? Sure. And I hope that it would. I hope that it is, because that would be awesome. If we are in possession of, if we are in possession of alien technology and we are back engineering it, that would be awesome. But do I believe people like convicted pimp, fake scientist Bob Lazar and Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp about their claims? No. And why? Because they have no evidence. They've made millions of dollars pushing these stories, and they have no evidence to support the stories. They've got tantalizing maybe evidence, but they have certainly have no smoking gun evidence. Now, there's a few more things I have to share, then we'll get into the super chats, read every single one of them. Thank you guys for your patience. This is a very data-rich show for once, right? Okay. Now, I just want to mention to you all of the things that Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp got wrong. and all of the things that they failed to do as so-called journalists or researchers. Here's one article. Swarmed Navy destroyer had its bridge illuminated by mysterious drones. Again, drones. So while Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp are pushing aliens constantly with their drops and their releases and their various monetized projects, the truth is that the United States Navy is now admitting that their ships are coming into contact with drones, sometimes of unknown origin, sometimes of suspected Chinese origin, right? Paul Hamilton observed 4 UASs, unidentified aerial systems, with a CPA, closest point of approach, of approximately 200 yards off the bow, port, and starboard beams. And for those not familiar, that would be the front, the left, and the right sides of the ship. The UAS had an on-station time of approximately 2 hours and 20 minutes. The first UAS was spotted by lockouts, observed with a single solid white light off the port bow. PHM turned to course 180. A second UAS or UAP was observed flashing the bow and bridge with what appeared to be a searchlight or photographic device. So in many cases, these things that Corbell and we have a video here. I don't know if we could play that here. Here is a video of one of the drones. I'm surprised Corbell didn't post this and try to make some money off of it, right? Interestingly, they jump right to the aliens, right? Yeah, and the Navy has recently released video from, here, I'm going to share my screen and we'll wrap things up here. Navy releases video from mysterious drone swarms around warships off of California. Remember, this is the video we played earlier.
3217 north, 11957 west, operating in SoCal hop area. With course 270, true, speeds 59, at time 0424 Zulu. We have visual of 4 probable unidentified drones with course unknown.
4 probable unidentified drones with course unknown. And here are all the drones and the location of the ship. This information is out there, but why would you go to the real explanation of some of these events? There's no money in that, as evidenced, by anybody who does go and give you the truth. There's much more money in aliens. There's much more money in these are spaceships swarming the Navy vessels. And what about Corbell claiming that we're shooting at them as early every day, as recently as last Friday? Where's the proof of that? Where's the evidence of that? Where's the evidence after millions of dollars made off of Bob Lazar, millions of dollars made off of Skinwalker Ranch? These two have a terrible track record of giving everybody fantastical stories, but not giving anybody the evidence or proof they're true. And by the way, if these two guys want to make money selling stories, that's fine, but mark them as fiction. Don't pretend that these are true stories when they clearly are not. How much of the Corbell crap that he pushed, videos that he put out, images that he put out, are actually these Navy releases proving that they're drones, proving that they're not alien spacecraft. See, that's the problem. The problem is these guys jump to the aliens because that's where the money is. And part of me doesn't blame them because, quite honestly, the truth will set you free, but first it will make you broke as a content creator. And if I were to just sit here and do the light, see, there's things you have to do, though, ethically, that I'm not prepared to do, that Corbell and Knapp and many of these other content creators, we'll call them content creators, are willing to do. One of them is the lie by omission. Like, in order to sell the Bob Lazar story, they had to leave out an incredible amount of information. Like, did you know that George Knapp was called on the phone the date of the second? The Bob Lazar story first broke in, what was it, 88 or 89. And at first he was blacked out, and they used a voice disguiser or something, right? I don't even think they used a voice disguiser, but they put him in shadow. The second report where Bob Lazar outed himself, did you know that a real and verifiable Area 51 security guard called up George Knapp and said, you might want to be careful pushing this guy who claims he worked at Area 51, because I work at Area 51 and you can check my credentials and I'm in security here. We checked all the logs. No Bob Lazar flew in or out of Area 51 ever. So you might want to be careful, George Knapp, in pushing this guy. What did George Knapp do? Thank you very much. Hung up on the guy, and he never told his audience that. We did. We told the audience the truth, but not Knapp and not Corbell, because in order to make the story sellable, you have to do the lie by omission. Did you know that people who were supervisors of Bob Lazar at Los Alamos have come out and said Bob Lazar was never a scientist here? He was a low-level technician, the kind of guy who gets you a new keyboard or mouse for the lab computer when you spill your coffee on it. A low-level technician. He wasn't a senior staff-level physicist. He wasn't even a physicist. He was not a scientist. His education is fake. He's a convicted pimp, and these guys leave all of that information out. The lie by omission is how you sell the fake stories. And if you're willing to do that, you can make a lot of money in this field selling people half of the story. We try here to give people both sides of the story. And I hate that I've somehow fallen to skeptic land, right? I'm an experiencer myself. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that there was some meat on the bones of some of these stories. But the sad truth and reality is that you are being manipulated. You are being lied to so that these guys can make millions of dollars giving you only half the story. And that's the problem. The problem is they only will give you half the story. We try to give everybody both sides of the story. And hey, you've seen it here before. I can agree to disagree with people. If you still want to believe Bob Lazar's story after seeing the mountain of evidence that he's a fraud and a liar, and a mountain of evidence that Corbell and George Knapp actively and with forethought and knowledge of it withheld any information that they didn't think would help sell the story. That's what they do. All that information that proves that Bob Lazar is a fraud and a liar, they will not give you because it doesn't help their goal. And their goal is to make money selling you a story that they know is fake. They know it's fake. That's what makes this ethically and morally a problem for me. These guys are a lot of things, and I could say a lot about Corbell and Knapp, but one thing I won't say about them is that they're stupid. They're not stupid. They know that in order to sell these stories, they have to only give you part of the story. If they give you all the information, you will come to a reasonable conclusion that the story is not aliens. The story is not unknown craft. And the perfect example that we could give is this. The perfect example we could give is this latest release of a still from them. Why did Jeremy hide the GPS location data from the still image before releasing it? Why didn't he give people the GPS location? Is it because he didn't want people to be able to look up the location on Google Maps? Maybe, just maybe, there's something at that location, right? And why were we given a still and not the video? We don't get to see this thing flying. For all we know, and many people have speculated, this image is a puddle on the ground, and it is not an aircraft in flight. And before anybody attacks me and say, oh, they wouldn't lie like that. Did they lie about the pyramid spaceships? Right? Lied about that. Did they withhold the audio from the pyramid spaceship videos on purpose? Sure they did. They are carefully manipulating the data that they are in possession of in order to sell you a story about aliens. The story, when given, if you were given all of the data, if we had, I know there's a reason we didn't get the video of this. There's a reason we didn't get the GPS location. There's a reason we only got a still image from this. And I think that reason is that if we had all the information, we would know exactly what that object in the frame is. And that's why it was withheld from us. But now what we get is two people who have proven that they don't give us the whole story. Time and time again, we can prove they withhold information, they manipulate the data available in order to sell their story. Time and time and time again, they straight lie to us. George Knapp, this book is based on the mountains of physical evidence that we've amassed over the years. Where's the evidence, George Knapp? You don't have any evidence. You were asked straight out, where's it? Well, we don't have we don't have any evidence. Well, then why did you lie in your book and say that the book was based on all this evidence? Corbell and Knapp are entertainers. That's what they are. They're not on some search for truth and taking you with them, which is something that I tried to do. And apparently I do a terrible job of it because, the truth is boring. Nobody wants the truth. They want fantastical fairy tales about aliens, and I wish I could just bring those to you. But again, we get back to the moral and ethical problems. You have to just throw your morals in the trash and say, I'm just going to lie to people every day to make money. Sorry, I'm not willing to do that. Do I believe in some of the strange, the esoteric, and the paranormal being true and real? Absolutely. But the problem is the evidence, the real evidence for things like that are so few and far between. And the hunger for that evidence, for that information, for those stories to be real is so strong that profiteering hucksters rush in to fill the void when there is not evidence available. They manipulate the data. They manipulate the stories. They are manipulating you. When you click on their videos, they laugh at you. We got them again, right? It's unfortunate, but it's true. And I am reminded that we didn't get to the super chats yet. We're going to do that next. But before I do, let me remind you that we're a viewer-supported show. And if you want to support a show host who, and content creator who will give you the whole story, by the way, all we can do is the best that I can do. Every time that we cover a story, we do our best to show you both sides. Both sides, the evidence it may be true, the evidence it may be fake or a fraud or a hoax or whatever. We do our best here. I will never manipulate data or withhold information from you so that I can sell a story. I think that is valuable. And we're a viewer-supported show. So here's my friend Ian letting you know how you can support our show.
Truth Seekers is a viewer-supported show. Wonderful people like you who enjoy this show send pledges in the form of Super Chats, Super Stickers, Super Thanks, PayPal, or Cash App. Instructions for how to help are in the description. You can also join our Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month you can get extra content. Patreon supporters get a backstage pass, early access to all our production videos before they are distributed publicly, Stephen Campion's music, private writings, a monthly show journal, and more. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5 a month. A YouTube membership includes all of the Patreon benefits, plus a special members badge, priority reply to video comments, and the live chat, plus a monthly members-only video. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, for supporting Truth Seekers. Thank you for your generosity and support. Thanks for being here. This is Truth Seekers with your host, Steven Campion. Please rate, like, and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truth Seekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat room during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truth Seekers. Truth Seekers.
Yeah, so greetings and salutations. Oh, wait a minute. That's better. Sorry about that. So we're going to check in with our kind and generous benefactors. And I apologize for not getting to the super chats until now. Going forward, I will read everyone and share them on the screen. We have kind and generous $2 from Steve Nicholson. Lord Ludacris says this interview is 1 year old. Timing for a conference. Yes, they do that routinely. They are purposefully, again, manipulating their available data for maximum monetization impact, right? They're going to go work conferences and talk about this amazing interview with their new government insider who just so happens to be an award-winning CIA intelligence asset. Thank you, Lord Ludacris, for your kindness, generosity, and support. Complizer with a kind and generous 551 says, thanks, Stephen, because you do weaponize my curiosity for real. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. And Lord Ludacris, with a kind and generous 499 super chat, says Corbell has stopped using UAP and now says UFO for the implication and what happened to the hello mold, the Jello mold, I think he means, and Top Hat UFO Lazar described. Great show. Well, thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support. And we have a kind and generous PayPal pledge of $5.78 from David B., who says, hey, Steve, praise the cash. I hope you are still pounding those pavements for Randy Kramer. Yeah, we'll have an update on that as well. And we're aware of a new Stolen Valor fake. Oh, look, you can see my Chucks now. I'm wearing Chucks. I haven't had Chucks in quite some time. Used to wear them constantly. My wife got me a pair. Very comfortable. Not good winter shoes, though. So I'm going to take some time and catch up with the live chat. We have a kind and generous $10 super chat. Says this is for the sexy Hitchcock voice actor, and that would be Ian. Thank you for your kindness, generosity, and support of the show. It is much, much appreciated. We want to thank all you kind and generous benefactors from tonight, all you kind and generous super chatters, you PayPal pledgers, you super thanks people, you people that are subscribing over on Twitch. Did we leave anybody out? PayPal pledgers, Patreon supporters, and channel members. And thank you, Bobby Broadway, and all of you super chatters tonight for helping us to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for your generosity. Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the
cash. Somebody's using multiple sock puppets to argue with people in the account, right? In the live chat, right? Yes, Bob Marley says Lazar and Doty should hook up. The lying pimps, yeah. It's great. Those guys have made millions of dollars pushing a convicted pimp as a former government scientist. And every time I hear somebody call him a former government scientist, I cringe, because there's no proof he ever worked for the government, and he was never, is not now, and nor was he ever a real scientist. He's just a tech guy, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm a tech guy. Oh, and by the way, I almost forgot. I wanted to begin the broadcast with this, but apparently Richie Grifton, he needed a night off tonight because, true to his nature, this happens every time, right? Every time somebody makes Richie Grifton look like the hypocritical slimeball that he is, or proves that he's a liar, right? Lying to his audience, he's got to take a night off, right? And I think he did tonight, because I put it in the description of the video. Lion's Ground just ripped him apart and made him look like the total ass clown that he is, and hypocritical liar. Because, see, here's the thing. Richie Grifton calls everybody a fraud and a liar and a hoaxer, except for the people that he can make money from. So Lion's Ground took it to him, boy. What are your arguments then, Preston? Go ahead. Tell me where I'm wrong. Bob Lazar is a convicted pimp and not a real scientist. Prove me wrong. They've made millions of dollars pushing that lie. Sorry if you believed it. By the way, I grew up with the Bob Lazar story, and I always say this. If I could pick one story out of all of UFO mythology to be true, it would be the Bob Lazar story. Great story. Great story. Renegade scientist, right? Except he's not a scientist. Flew into Area 51, except he never flew into Area 51, and we have actual real confirmation of that. Former Los Alamos scientist. Oh, except that he wasn't a former Los Alamos scientist. He was a low-level technician who worked for Kirk Meyer. By the way, Kirk Meyer only hired low-level technicians as subcontractors to the lab. They didn't hire scientists. That's more proof that he was never a scientist. You know, you're not saying it's real. Okay. Well, I don't know what the argument or you know. Yes, Richie Grifton is busy applying berm cream after the Lion's Ground video. And by the way, don't do it until after the broadcast, but I have put Lion's Ground video in the description of this video. If you really want to see what an ass clown Richie Grifton is, he thinks he's a researcher. He thinks he's a good investigator. Oh, man. Listen, Heathcliff from Lion's Ground is amazing. He is a great researcher. He always has receipts to back up everything he said. And so what happened is, and by the way, Richie asked for this because he's stupid. He's an idiot. Lion's Ground did a video on what a fraud what a fraud Steven Greer is, and how Steven Greer takes money from people and then claims people are seeing aliens when they're seeing things like, oh, I don't know, cactuses, right? Oh, I'm going to share this. This is beautiful. So Lion's Ground made a video basically calling Steven Greer a liar and a fraud. Here's one of the shots. And the video goes into more detail of this, right? Cordwainer Bird 99 says Gufon defended Steven Greer, who said that the picture is an alien when clearly it's a Joshua tree. Lions Ground took them apart like a toy here, and shares the video. And by the way, B Baker, you can share that video link in the live chat. We're perfectly willing to support Lions Ground in his amazing work. So what happens is Lions Ground makes a video with facts, evidence, and all of the supporting receipts showing that Steven Greer constantly lies. He fakes things. He lies about like flares being spaceships. He lies about, cactuses being alien beings, right? And because Third Phase of Fake is still not done milking Steven Greer for money, they're trying to make more money after their last ridiculous documentary. By the way, their last documentary that Third Phase of Moon made with Steven Greer was so ridiculous. In that last documentary, Steven Greer claimed that an entire company got murdered in Michigan because they were developing free energy technology. So we checked. No, an entire company never got murdered in Michigan. That was a complete and total lie. And Third Phase of Fake, again, with the lie by omission. They refused to fact check Steven Greer. And then Gufon defended that, saying, well, if they were going to fact check everything Steven Greer said, he wouldn't have done the documentary. Essentially proving that they were willing to let a guy lie through his teeth in order to get a documentary deal done with Steven Greer. But they're not done making money with Steven Greer yet. So it's Richie Grifton's job to defend Steven Greer, because they're going to look like idiots making another documentary with a proven liar. Oh, also in their last documentary, Steven Greer claimed to go on a secret mission with Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, the guy with the beard, where they went to an underground base and saw top secret alien medical technology that could regrow limbs and cure people of paralysis and all kinds of stuff. They didn't fact check that either. And then I got in trouble because I got to Billy Gibbons' people who said they were going to get a comment from him, and they never got back to me. That story's likely fake. So Third Phase has already made a documentary full of Steven Greer's fake stories, and they're actively trying to make more documentaries with Steven Greer full of probably fake stories. Lions Ground proves that Steven Greer is a proven liar and hoaxer. And what does Richie Grifton do? He defends Steven Greer. You know why? Because his lords and masters, Third Phase of Fake, aren't done making money milking the UFO community for fake stories from proven liar, fraudster, hoaxer Steven Greer. So Richie Grifton decides it would be a good idea if he tried to play nice, gave him a lot of compliments, but then essentially said that Lions Ground, Heathcliff, didn't give any evidence that Steven Greer is a fraud or a liar. He just said it, which is completely and totally provably false, because Heathcliff's original video was filled with quotes from people saying that Steven Greer lied and name dropped them, filled with evidence and proof of Steven Greer hoaxing things to people who were paying big bucks, like $3,000 to see those aliens at E-SETI or C-SETI events, whatever, CE5 events. Richie Grifton decided to take on a monster, a lion, in the form of Lions Ground. There's one thing that you should never do, and that's try to argue with an incredibly competent, well-researched, incredible producer in the form of Lions Ground. It is like, I swear, when I saw he did that, I thought, oh, you about to get it, dummy? You about to get it, you dummy? Are you an idiot? Are you stupid? You're going to take on Lions Ground like a dummy? And he did, because he's stupid. And he gets this old lady to come on his show and say that Lions Ground didn't have journalistic integrity or something, because he didn't give them all the exact citations of where he got his information from. It's in the video. Just Google and you'll find it, you dummy. So Richie Grifton took on, look, this was ridiculous. This was like, I don't know. It was like watching, a 100-pound dummy who's drunk, who thinks that he could fight Mike Tyson. That's what this was like. So Lions Ground took Third Phase and Richie Grifton apart like the idiots they are. He just demolished them. And the video is in the description of the video, of this video. Heathcliff's video from Lions Ground taking on Third Phase of Moon and Richie Grifton is in the description of this video. I highly encourage you to watch it. And Richie Grifton, this happens every time. When I have done an expose, right, proving that he lies to his audience, he just got caught lying to his audience again. How many times are you stupid people watching Richie Grifton? How many times are you okay with him lying to you? He lied through his teeth in order to defend a proven liar, hoaxer, Steven Greer, because the people who are paying him, Third Phase of Fake, are not done milking Greer for more UFO dollar money, right? And Grifton decides, this is a good idea. I'm going to take on one of the internet's best investigative researchers, Heathcliff Spencer. This is so... I almost felt sorry for him doing that. Like, are you stupid? Do you know how good Heathcliff is from Lions Ground at what he does? How he always has receipts and can back up every single thing that he says with evidence and facts and receipts and quotes? Richie Grifton bit off way more than he could chew. And, of course, here we get this wonderful graphic. Greer and Gufon think this is a field full of aliens. Wonderful. Richie Grifton is exposed as a hypocrite again. He's exposed as a liar again. He's exposed as being a sellout again. Right, Richie Grifton? You're going to call everybody a fraud and a hoaxer and a liar, except for the people that you financially benefit from. So all you have to do to stay off of his radar and not get attacked by him is give him a little bit of money, some YouTube ad pennies, whatever you give him, some subscribers, and then he'll tell everybody how great you are. Third Phase is doing great work, right? And let's not forget that he just got caught before this lying to his audience saying Third Phase never faked anything for the past 5 years. Third Phase never hoaxed anything for the past 3 years. The last year, they never hoaxed anything on purpose. And then we caught Richie Grifton with private messages proving that he knew the whole time he was running around calling everybody pedos and attacking everyone. He knew that Third Phase was actively looking for and accepting fake UFO videos that people would send them that they faked. They were told the video was fake. Richie Grifton was told the video was faked. They were told how they faked it. And they ran with it and pretended it was an alien spaceship. And Richie Grifton lied to his audience, and then he sat by knowing that that was a fake video when Third Phase broadcast it, and he said nothing. He said nothing. Now he's running that same old scam too, B. Baker. You remember that scam? Oh, money's really tight. I'm going to have to get a job, so I'm going to have to cut back on the show. He has said that every few months. And then where's the job? How many times are you going to pull that to increase the super chats? Richie Grifton. Then Richie Grifton had, sadly, this Coral Ann died. A nice lady. Always in his chat. What does he do when a member of his audience dies? He claims that he has an EVP. Electronic voice phenomenon, from that lady who just died's ghost. He claims that in a thumbnail and in a title to clickbait so that he can make some money off of an audience member that just died. That's what kind of slimeball he is. All right. But largely, I'm over Richie Grifton and on to bigger and better things. Stormcrow with a kind and generous $5 says no passes. No. See, this is what created the problem between me and him. because he was being real friendly to me. So I felt a certain kind of way, like, well, I can't really beat him up too much on working for Third Phase. He's being very nice to me. No, this is what happens when you give somebody a pass. He should never have gotten a pass. From day one, I should have said, you work for Third Phase, the biggest fraud, fake, hoaxer, liar, grifters in the world of UFOs. Therefore, no, I'm not coming on your show. No, you can't play any of my stuff. No, I don't want to speak to you or interview you or have you interview me. No, you work for fraudster, scammer, hoaxers, who, by the way, one time they used their 4-year-old child to scam for YouTube dollars with a completely and totally fake alien sighting video. Father of the Year award, right? And lately now, he's grifting, saying that he's going to have to shut a show down and get a job. How many times have we heard him do that? I should have saved the clips and we could just play them. It's like he's on a schedule. Every few months, gee, there's not many super chats coming in. I know. I'll say that I'm shutting the show down, or I'm cutting back, or I have to get a part-time job. First it was, I have to get a part-time job. Now I have to get a full-time job, right? It's all to increase the super chats so this lazy slob can make a living attacking everyone for being a fraud, a hoaxer, and a liar, except for the fraud, hoaxer, liars that he works with and for in the form of Third Phase. And now Steven Greer. He's a defender of Steven Greer. Do you have any idea, Richie Grifton, you dummy, you idiot, how much information I have on Steven Greer, you dummy? Do you want me to start dropping it all and make you look like an idiot again and again and again? How many times are we going to do this one, Rich? How many times am I going to prove that you're a liar and a scumball and a slime ball? You're grifting off of dead viewers, you asshole. But largely, I've let it go. And I'm glad that I did, because I don't need to prove he's a liar. Other people can do that just as easily as me. Any competent researcher can prove that Richie Grifton is an idiot and a liar. Why would you watch a guy who's defending fraudster, hoaxer, scammers that he is financially benefiting from, but attacking everybody else? Makes no sense. He's an expert, right? Bob Marley says, "Talk. We are looking for the same answer. So let's buy Greer's movie, or should we buy Elizondo's book?" I'm not buying either. I'm not buying either. Oh, and by the way, I forgot. Thank you, Stormcrow, for the kind and generous $5 super chat and helping us, of course, to praise the cash.
Praise the cash, praise the cash, praise the cash.
Yeah, and I think that a large part of what bothered Grifton about me was that I was not bought and paid for. He is. He can't tell you the truth because his loyalties are all screwed up. Oh, those big famous hoaxer guys are my buddies now, right? They're going to give me some money someday, so I have to keep my mouth shut. Grifton, get a job. Mommy and Daddy will provide. He's moving back with them to Arizona. An allegedly grown-ass man. Well, in his defense, B. Baker, I took care of my mother for 20 years after my father died. There's no shame in taking care of your parents. But the question is he taking care of his parents, or is his parents taking care of him? There's no way on God's green earth that he's making enough money from that shit show of his to pay for all of his expenses, to pay all of his utilities, to pay his medical insurance, if he even has any, to buy all of his food, to pay for a car, to pay for a car insurance. There's no way that he's making that much money. So one can be left to guess, where does he get the rest of his money? Who knows? He doesn't have any other income, right? I think it's very important to have multiple income sources so that you don't become a slime ball doing things like grifting off of dead people in your live chat to get YouTube money. That's ridiculous. Yeah. Gaza Ablett was defiantly aiming terrible slurs against Cambion. Yeah, He said I had pedo friends and that might make me a pedophile. Then he attacked my wife. Then he attacked my child. Then he attacked my dead father. Why? Because I told everybody the truth about third phase of moon and Steven Greer when he lied to everybody. That's why he did that. Because he's a slimeball and a scumball, right? Gufon sits in his trailer smoking weed all day. His mom has to look after him because he's too stoned to do anything. Well, I don't know about that. And honestly, I don't care about the guy. Best alien footage he ever got in 20 years on the ground reporting, Gabbard Beast TV. Gufon offered Camby in a dust-up mano a mano. Who'd win? Oh, man, I largely, look, I'm a father. I have 2 children. I would not do anything that might land me in any kind of legal trouble. So that'll never happen. Well, never say never, right? But no, I don't support or condone any violence, even against somebody who has wronged me so many times, even against somebody who has attacked my children, my wife, my dead relatives, I pity him. What a predicament to be in, especially now. Like, oh man, Heathcliff made him look like the idiot that he is, and good. He deserved that. All he had to do was leave that Steven Greer piece Heathcliff did go and not say anything, but he couldn't do it. Or the third face told him that you better go out there and defend Steven Greer because Lions Ground's making him look like a scammer and a liar, and we got to make money with him. Go say something, Rich. And they wind him up and they send him out there, but he's an idiot and he has no arguments, and his arguments are invalid because he has no evidence. He never has any evidence because he's lazy. He doesn't do any research. He doesn't have anything to share except his opinion. And what's the opinion of a grifter scammer who would scam off of people dying in their audience to make YouTube dollars? What is his opinion worth? Nothing. Nothing. He has nothing to offer the world except his opinion. And you know what they say, opinions are like assholes. Everybody has them, right? So we have done our due diligence. We're almost at 3 hours. I got to bounce on out of here. I'm trying to keep the shows short, right? This one I knew was going to be long because we had a lot of ground to cover. But tomorrow night, we will be back at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And for those unaware, I am suffering the terrible affliction of the man flu. I don't know if it's the cold or a flu, but I have a terrible sore throat and I'm all stuffed up. I've got my cherry halls here, and I've got all kinds of my poor wife. I've got like 4 different kind of cold pills here, right? I'm taking vitamin C, vitamin D, zinc, echinacea, and some other crap. I don't know. I'm just swallowing everything, trying to feel better. I'm sure I'll feel better tomorrow because I don't know what it is, but when I get a cold or a flu or something, those first couple of days hit me like a truck. And then I don't know if my body adjusts to being sick. It's just not so bad after the first couple of days. This is day 2 of feeling sick and ill, right? Gufon, sponsored by Third Phase of Clown School. Yes, absolutely. I'm just glad that I don't have to smack them around anymore because other people are and make them look. And you know what? It's better. If it's always me telling people what a scumball and a liar that guy is, it doesn't register as well as other people also chiming in, right? So I'm glad that Heathcliff is there. And by the way, you guys know I don't throw around compliments very much. That guy Heathcliff is amazing. He's an amazing video editor. He's an amazing investigator, amazing researcher, amazing at everything that he does. He's a great producer. That guy's amazing. And for somebody who is an intellectual weakling like Richie Grifton to think that he's going to counter one of his pieces, I knew that. When I saw he was going to do that, I'm like, "Ooh, good luck, dude. Are you stupid?" What's that clip? That clip from Forrest Gump. Are you stupid or something? Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I thought of that Forrest Gump scene where she says, "Are you stupid or something?" Richie Grifton, you are dumb, dude. If you think you're going to take on a real researcher like me or Heathcliff or something. And by the way, I love how he says, I don't have any evidence. There's 2 goddamn documentaries full of evidence, you dummy. Stop lying to your audience. Stop pretending that you're some kind of equal to me or somebody like Heathcliff. You're not on the same level, dude. You got to go back to school, and we'll take you back to school. You keep flapping your gums like a dummy. But that's what he does. I was very fortunate because a wiser man than me taught me, have facts in hand before putting mouth in gear, right? He never does that because it takes time and energy and resources and passion and research to get those facts in hand before you open your mouth. He's not willing to do that, so he always ends up looking like an idiot because he's too lazy to do the work, right? But I don't know. They always saying that he's got to get a job and he's going to have to shut down the show. I predict no job in his near future, right? This is supposed to be the last week of his show being every day, right? And then he's got to get a real job. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Can't call a man a PDO on a rant. It's the lowest and deserves a response from Cambion, in my opinion. Well, I mean, we did what we did. I hit him back and I showed everybody what a liar and a scammer he is. We literally caught him lying to his audience. He claimed Third Phase never hoaxed anything, hasn't hoaxed anything in 5 years, haven't hoaxed anything in 3 years, didn't hoax anything on purpose. Then we showed private messages, Gaza Ablet, that proved that Richie Grifton knew that Third Phase of Moon were taking known fake videos where somebody said, here's a fake UFO video. Here's how I faked it. Doesn't this look good? Here's how I faked it. Richie Grifton knew they were taking that and pretending it was a UFO or a spaceship when they knew it was a faked video. We proved that here. And to me, that was vindication enough to show everybody that Richie Grifton is a piece of shit. And I'm good, right? He can disparage me or attack my wife, my child, my dead father, all he wants, because he doesn't have any there's no meat on the bones from him, and I'm sure it's very frustrating for him that there's very little or if any dirt to be found on me. I'm a very boring man. I've been with the same woman for like 30 years, right? I have 2 children. Very boring, right? I don't have any criminal convictions or criminal past. There's no dirt for him to find to attack me with. So what did he decide to do? He decided to attack my 6-year-old son, because that's what a real man does. Then he decided to attack my wife, because that's what a real man does. Then he decided to lie about my wife being a stripper, getting breast implants with no evidence of any of that. By the way, she never did and never was, but it doesn't matter. He's a piece of shit. That's something that a bitter, angry, jealous little man does. Because after all, he can say whatever he wants about my wife, but she's still here. You know why? Because I know how to make a woman come, Richie Grifton, and apparently you don't, because yours left. Do you know why women leave men? Because the men don't make them come. That's one big reason. Ask your female friends. They'll tell you the truth, right? Yeah. So we're going to bounce on out of here. I appreciate everybody for being here. We want to thank our kind and generous benefactors. We want to thank all of you super chatters, Patreon supporters, channel members, Twitch subscribers, and you super thanks people, super sticker purchasers, super everything. We want to thank all of you. You make, through this teamwork, you make the dream work. I couldn't do it without you. I really appreciate it. All right, we're going to bounce on out of here. We'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I hope you'll be here with us. I got a great show planned for you tomorrow night. You definitely want to be here. Until next time, friends, my name is Steven Cambion. Good night, and God bless you all, especially you, Richie Grifton. I hope you get over that burn from Heathcliff. And I'm going to pray that you get a real job and stop lying to people to make money. Good night, and God bless all of you.
I love licking Bob Lazar's butthole. It's my favorite butthole to lick.